Hello, guys, and welcome to another episode of the Flamish Experience with your host Flamish. And since last week, we got a panel member called Animated Evil.
Hello, guys. Hello.
Yeah, and for our two guests of the evening, first we have a special guest, one of the Our Lords podcast, trying to get all of them on. And this time we have Lord Sovereign on the show. Welcome.
Hey, how you doing? Pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me. And my apologies for not being able to make last week. I'm so sorry.
It's no worries, man. We had a good time last week, so we
Oh,
could manage without you. I mean, real life always comes first. So
yeah, it was absolutely crazy. I was literally about to sit down and have something to eat. And in between shows, my wife went down to run errands, and right before I put like the fork in my mouth, she says, um, yeah, my car is missing. And I'm like, oh, that's not a good thing.
no, not really. I would say.
But
Yeah.
thankfully, we rectified the situation, so that's good.
That's good. I mean, yeah, it would be bad if the car was lost and never returned, right?
Exactly, exactly.
I mean, I would drop my food as well if I heard something like that, like the car is gone. Oh no.
Like, oh, of all the things that could possibly happen, that is like the worst possible thing.
Yeah.
Especially since we just purchased that car, so it's like, oh, okay.
Oh wow. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah.
That's really bad.
Hmm.
Oh. So yeah, and then we also have Clowns, of course, my partner in crime from for Guys with Quarters, but he's momentarily is unavailable because he's doing something else, personal reasons. But he will be back shortly, so then we'll introduce him for sure. So yeah, first of all, my question, like I always ask in the beginning of the show, what have you been playing, Lord Sovereign?
So for me, last week, I finally finished Miles Morales, and I finished most of Astro's Playroom. So then, 'cause I had been neglecting my Xbox for a while now. So once I put that to the side, I turned on my Series X, and I was playing Valhalla. If you listen to our show, you know that I love Assassin's Creed. I can't not play an Assassin's Creed game. So I was excited to really get into Valhalla, and starting it out, like it felt different than other Assassin's Creeds. It felt very much like a kind of going back to basics in some ways of older Assassin's Creeds. So I found that interesting, and the combat didn't really catch me early on. But I'm maybe 15 hours in, and I've opened up a bunch of like abilities and stuff like that, and expanded like my combat repertoire. So now I'm enjoying it a lot more. But I'm really liking it. I'm really liking it. So Assassin's Creed, and I'll probably be playing that till the end of 2021.
Wow. Is it? Are you? How many hours are you in the game right now?
I'm probably 13 to 15 hours in.
Okay, so you
And
haven't been playing too much. I mean,
yeah, and I haven't had a chance to play like that, like I would like to. But for me, when I play Assassin's Creed games, I don't. The story's probably the last thing I get to. Like as soon as they give me the ability to go out into the open world and just mess around, forget it. I just get lost. I just get lost, and I like to clear the map out. So
yeah, yeah. There's this new game coming out. I'll have some gameplay on the screen later on.
hmm
Of this new game called Phoenix Rising Immortals.
Immortals, yeah, Immortals came out, and I was tempted, and then I said, you know what, there's too much Ubisoft. Like Ubisoft is trying to do really too much at this launch with three
Yeah.
big open world games. I'm like, nah, I can't.
In
I,
not even 1 month time. I mean, and then Far Cry is coming very soon, of course.
Far Cry, yeah,
Um,
they actually pushed it from February, so I think it's May now. But that's so
oh,
close,
okay,
though. That's so
yeah,
close.
yeah. Especially with these three, if you've gone through these three and then starting, then it will be for sure some time for the new Far Cry. So
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, and then if you think about like, you have Cyberpunk next week, and it's just there's too many big games to be worrying about, trying to play more than one at a time. So
Oh yeah, for me it's the thing. Like I've been playing the Phoenix or Immortals Rising.
Mhm.
Immortals Phoenix. The name can be switched
You
around.
mean gods and monsters? You mean?
Yeah, Gods and Monsters. That's the best name. I wish they have a mission in the game called Gods and Monsters though. So
Really?
yeah. The when you save it in the beginning,
Yeah,
there's like the autosave system, and you see
that's
all
funny.
these saves they have, and one of the titles is called Gods and Monsters. So they still
Yeah.
kept it in there for a little bit of love, I think.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
I heard the issue was it was literally like a Monster Energy drink
yeah,
thing that
it's stupid. It's stupid. They should not have done that. I mean, it has nothing to do with Monster Energy drink. There's no Monster Energy drink in the game or no energy drinks at all.
you're
So
right.
it's stupid. I mean, well, so much
That's
protection
good.
for something. I mean, I don't
Yeah,
get it. But
yeah.
no, that game is so good. I do. It got a lot of positive reviews from a
Hmm.
lot of different websites and a lot of different reviewers on YouTube and stuff. Gave it really good reviews. But yeah, it really gets the praise I feel deserved. Like I have a lot of fun. My girlfriend is watching me game that game, and she's like,
Hmm.
"Oh my god, this looks so beautiful." And she's always like saying stuff, "Go there, go there." She
Yeah,
enjoyed
and
the humor.
it's not really even fully optimized yet for the new consoles. It's just kind of like a backwards compatibility sort of. It runs, in a performance mode and I think a fidelity mode, but it's not really fully patched yet for the next gen console. So I would really
Ooh.
like to see what that looks like once that's done.
Yeah, I'm using the 4K mode. I mean, I have an OLED TV.
Hmm.
I needed my 4K. I chose it for that. I'm not going to 60 frames in game like this. I
Yeah.
mean, the colors pop off the screen. I need my details.
Oh, man. Oh yeah, I could see that, especially a game that has that sort of cartoony animation. I can definitely it's sticking with the 30 and the fidelity mode. Yeah,
Yeah,
very pretty.
yeah. And then Anime Devil, what have you been playing, boy?
Oddly enough, I've just this weekend just started my first ever Dragon Quest. I've never played it
Ooh.
before.
Nice.
I'm circa 4 hours in, and so far this fits me well. I love the old JRPG stuff, and I've played a lot, but not owning a PlayStation for many years. I never got into the series,
Hmm.
but I really like it. Someone recommended it, and yeah, I love it.
Okay, cool.
It's
And
good stuff. That classic sort of JRPG, Dragon Quest. I mean, I played Dragon Quest back when it was Dragon Warrior on the NES,
Protocol.
and those
Really,
games were super involved, man. And they're just humongous undertakings. So again, to get into another RPG with like Cyberpunk on the horizon, and like there's Yakuza out there. There's so many different. It's just so much. But for Dragon Quest, I heard this one is absolutely amazing, but I heard it's like 150 hours sort of endeavor. So get
It's
get
yeah.
ready for that.
it's a
Wish me luck.
big game. I'm actually showing off some gameplay right now from the demo. I tried it. I cannot get into it. The turn-based combat is killing me. I
Yeah,
don't like turn-based combat at all. So, ah.
he's like, no, I can't do this anymore. Yeah, I get it. I get it. They figured out a lot of ways to give you sort of the mixture between the turn-based and the action-based. I think Final Fantasy VII Remake did a great job with that, sort of giving you the kind of the best of both worlds.
Hmm.
But yeah, the Dragon Quest is always about being classic. Like if you remove this game from the prettiness and just put it into like a pixel art, it basically plays like the old games. Like the guts of these games haven't changed a lot in terms of classic JRPG mechanics. They really haven't. So I
Hmm.
mean, and that's commendable, but that also does mean that it's more niche than you would like it to be. But I'm
Yeah.
glad it's on Xbox. I'm really happy that it's finally on Xbox and people get to play this.
There's actually a 2D version you can switch to if you want to. So you
That's
can play it.
right. I
You
forgot
can
about
play it
that.
old style, yeah.
Yes,
I
wanted to say
forgot
as
about
well. It is interesting to play a 2D version on a game like this that is based on 3D. I
that. Hmm.
mean, I don't know how that works. I'm not gonna try that out. It's just not my style
Yeah.
of games. I mean, I love those beautiful RPG like Assassin's
Yeah.
Creed, like Phoenix Rising. Those games are so great. But
Yeah. Yeah, but it goes back to what I said about how the guts of the game hasn't changed in like 20 some odd years. Because if you could just transplant that to a 2D game, yeah, it is just that type of game. But yeah, people love it, man. Like this in Japan, when these games come out, it's like a national holiday. Like it really is a humongous deal when the Dragon Quest game comes out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and was a huge deal to get this on Xbox as well, because this is the first Dragon Age game on Xbox. A Dragon Quest game, sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a big deal, and hopefully, as more come out, we'll get them day and date. But it's good just to see it here. Period. And in Game Pass, like you can't really go wrong at all.
No, there's nothing wrong with Game Pass. I mean, the games releasing this month is just a cherry on top. Like every month, new games. So good. I mean, the full game of this is available in Game Pass on this month. So I mean, sorry. I need to turn down my sounds of my cell phone. There we go. But yeah, Cloud's not here yet, so he'll come back later. No, tell us a little bit more about yourself, Lord Sovereign, because I don't really like of the lords. You are one of the ones I don't really know that well. I have to say, like all the others I've heard a lot about, but you're a little bit more behind the scenes for me personally. Like I don't really know.
Yeah, definitely, man. For me, like I'm the one like. When it comes to my work schedule, I kind of work a normal schedule. So I work days a lot of times when the guys are around, so they can guest on podcasts and stuff like that. They're kind of more nocturnal people. And then for me, I work beyond working days. I also work a second job. So I'm kind of Monday through Friday. I'm usually not available from like 5 a.m. to like 11 p.m. So my Monday through Friday is usually done. And then Saturdays is sort of set aside to spend time with my wife. And then Sundays is the podcast. And I usually work Sunday afternoons as well. So it's been very hard to sort of, come on shows. And I, friends in the community like, Boom and other people that have asked me to be on. And it's just super difficult. So yeah, usually that means I'm kind of behind the scenes. You only see me on my show. And that's pretty much it. And I don't have the hugest presence either on Twitter. Like, despite there being a lot of great people in the community, I Twitter overall just sometimes gets a little too toxic for my taste. Yes. So I just like, it's one of those things. Like I'll retweet stuff, that from my friends and stuff like that. But once you start seeing all the conversations that happen in your sort of timeline, and it's like, no, man, I'm good. I'm not gonna get engaged in this like that. So yeah, so my presence on social media isn't that crazy either. So that's why you kind of only see me on our show, whereas these guys are always, guesting on other shows.
Okay.
Yeah. So like last week I was on vacation and I was like, I knew there were a couple of people that were asking me when I would be free to be able to be on the show. So I know I have a couple of things scheduled for my Christmas vacation as well. Because I appreciate everybody that asked me to come on, and I wish I could do it, but literally, like when I say I have no time, like it's no time. So it's fun to finally be able to sit down and talk shop on another podcast apart from my own.
Yeah,
I mean,
we're not honest to have you as well. So sorry, Flamish.
No. What were you going to say? Because
I was just saying it's a genuine honor that he's taking time out and.
Oh no, man! I thank you guys for inviting me. Thank you guys for inviting me. I mean, again, anytime you have a channel that has people just talking about games without any of the other, sort of BS surrounding it, I'm all in. Because at the end of the day, you realize that the conversation around games is cool. And it's good to have these conversations and have an understanding of the industry as a whole and stuff like that. But more often than not, like I said, that's why I sort of stay away from Twitter a lot. It's just that, it kind of devolves into conversations I don't want to be having. But if we're just here to talk about games, I am all in, 100%.
Yeah, that's also my reason. Like I'm call myself the positive gamer for this reason. Like I don't like the negative stuff at all. Like it
Yeah.
doesn't matter who you are. If you're my best friend, if you're talking negative all day, nah, I don't want to know, man. Just like
Yeah.
even the negative conversations that podcasts sometimes do.
Yeah.
Like talking about the console war stuff. Like I don't even want to talk about that. I just want to talk about my games, my gameplay, what's your best time in gaming, that kind of stuff, like the happy thoughts. It's a happy thoughts that counts.
And that's the thing. You realize like, look, this is a fun thing. Why are people arguing with each other over, which is better, this, that, and the other? And I can see like when I was young, you had that where it was like, oh, I have this and you don't have this, and there wasn't even a console war around it that I remember that I grew up with. It was more about you being somewhat envious of the other person, like, hey man, can I come over to your house and see this thing that I don't have, and vice versa. And that's how it was with us. The competition and the sort of going back and forth came from actually competing in games, not necessarily this competition between which platform was better, but more who's better at this game. And that's what I come from. So all that other stuff, like, as long as I can remember, the goal was to always get everything right. If you really loved all of these games, you do everything in your power to make sure you're not missing out on anything. And that's the way I've always felt about it. So, it's never been an option for me to only have one console or to have one platform. Even if financially in the moment I wasn't able to, like, the goal is always to get every single platform. And I think that's the way it should be. Just, I understand people have different, if financially they can or they can't or whatever, but I just think, especially now, if we're on a podcast talking about gaming, you want to have the most well-rounded sort of opinions on things as you possibly can. And that means that you want to try to play as much stuff as you possibly can. And that means getting as many platforms as you can. And that's just the reality of it. And that fits perfectly into how I game. So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what I think about that, like for me, it's the same. Like I always want all different platforms. I have PC. I recently, like this week, my girlfriend paid for me in advance the Quest 2 from Oculus, which is a
nice.
great system, by the way. If you're looking for one VR headset that's like rules them all, buy the Oculus Quest 2. It's wireless. It does everything on your PC if you buy a virtual desktop, which is like $20 for me. It's beautiful. It really is beautiful. The pixelated, it's not pixelated like in PlayStation VR, because that was horrible.
Yeah.
Like the difference is so big. Like I always thought that VR was so cool. I bought the PlayStation VR because of it in like a deal for $200 with 5 games and stuff. And I played a lot of VR on that, but man, the difference is staggering.
Yeah, it's night and day. I have the first Quest, and unfortunately, I bought it like at the beginning of this year. I bought it like March, April, and then it's like a couple of months later they finally announced the Quest 2. So I'm like, I'm looking at the price like $300 isn't so bad. Maybe I could find somebody to take this one off my hands and get the new one. But yeah, it for what it does. It's absolutely fantastic. And the fact that, if you have the proper PC setup, you can hook it up to your PC.
Yes.
And then you can play, the games that require more of it, like the Half-Life Alyxes and stuff like that, connected to your PC. Like, so it's so versatile. It's so great. Like, absolutely amazing piece of hardware. I hope with the price point and hopefully more games coming out that this does start to push the VR narrative more, because it seems like PlayStation is kind of done pushing it. We'll see what happens with a possible PlayStation VR 2. But if, without that mainstream headset that is affordable and has a big library, it's sad to say, but VR may be sort of dead in the water if we don't get that push from the mainstream. So,
well, not necessarily. I mean,
well, dead in the water in the sense that the big push for gaming, it has so many other applications.
Yeah.
But the big push for gaming has to be with a platform that's affordable and that people are willing to invest in. I think PlayStation had it right in knowing that their name would push sales of that console, of that platform.
Okay.
But it just almost doesn't seem like they're not super interested to continue 100%, or they're kind of on the fence whether they should or they shouldn't. So
Yeah, it's the same with Xbox. It's still a mystery, but like I think everybody's saying like he promised it, right? And when I think about it, he did promise it, but he said that the tech needs to be better, it needs to be more affordable, it needs to be more easy to use, like an easy setup and stuff. It needs to be overall, it needs to be a great experience. And because people still get motion sickness, that's one of the main reasons why we still have to wait, I guess.
Yeah.
Because I was playing this game earlier called Asgard, like an the Asgard's Wrath. It's Oculus Quest 2.
Okay.
And you get it for free if you use a link cable to link it to your PC. You can play on your PC with the link cable. You don't need that. You just like I used my USB cable for my Xbox Series V2 controller, and it's fine. Like it works.
Okay.
It's not.
I actually ordered the $80 cable because the one that I had gotten didn't work well. I'm like, let me just order the expensive one, and it works fine. But yeah, from what I heard, you don't need it.
Yeah, I'm buying now a third party one because my cable is not 3.0, it's 2.0. So I need to make sure that I get the right connection in there. So I'm buying the cheapest one that I found was $40 for 5 meters.
Okay.
So that's good enough. Klaus, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you guys hear me okay?
Hey,
Clown,
there he
what's
is.
up, brother, man? What's going on?
Hey, what's going on, Lord Sovereign, man? It's been a hot minute, huh?
It's been a minute. I think every time you've been on our show, I haven't been on since the last time we've been on together.
Yeah, the Toys R Us one, right?
Yeah, I mean that's the last one I remember us being on together. Your first appearance on ILP, if I recall.
Yeah, it was voted what, the most favorite episode of that year or something. Yeah,
best,
great.
The best. Toys R Us stories are the best, man.
Yeah, they are. I want to chime in because I kind of agree with you, Lord Sovereign, on this, right? I think that, VR in itself is huge as far as the market is concerned for many things, like for accessibility reasons, for training reasons. But when it comes to the gaming space, I think that, it's at the point where it's fight for its life kind of mode, right? Because we do see that PlayStation really has kind of winded down the PSVR, at least for now. We don't know what their plans are in the future. But, I mean, the PS5 camera doesn't even work with the existing PSVR. You have to get an adapter, which kind of tells you something that PlayStation's not really concerned about maintaining PSVR, and they kind of know that a lot of people have physical discs of PSVR games, but yet they're still pushing out digital consoles, which is also another concern with PSVR.
I do want to say about that VR cable that you can actually order it for free online if you type in the code of your stuff, so you get it for free basically.
The adapter.
I got one. My buddy Yoshida got me one, so I was a little happy. I got one. But
your buddy Shuhei?
Yeah, Shu. As everybody knows him out there. But when it comes to the Quest, right? Like I think it's kind of like it's really at its time where either Facebook really has to push this as a mainstream kind of gaming mechanism, or if it fails, I mean, this could be it for VR, because the Quest in itself is a limited ecosystem if you think about it, right? I mean, how many Quests are out there versus consoles or versus actual PC sales for PC games? And then you got to think about the attachment rates for the Quest. So if developers make games that are VR and they only sell so many units, it's not profitable for them. And eventually they'll lose funding, they'll lose investments, they'll lose stockholders in that. So it's really going to be up to mega corporations like Facebook and Amazon to kind of say, hey, investors, we can put the marketing behind this if you believe in the product so that you can invest in it for years and games could keep coming. Otherwise, there's no reasons for studios to keep developing games for it. Honestly, I mean, I hate to say it, but they got to make money to stay in business. I mean, after all, it is kind of like a demand kind of business, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I really do think that Facebook is doing the Quest a disservice by requiring the Facebook account to sort of have a Quest account, and B, like you said, they need to just put the product out there and not necessarily have to associate it with an Oculus store or a Facebook store. Put it out there as a product that can access all sort of VR marketplaces, Steam, everything. I mean, you can do that, but it's all has to be side loaded and stuff like that. It isn't something that happens naturally on the system. Just put it out as almost like a third party system that can access everything. And I think you really give it a fighting chance where you're going to get units out there. The way they have it right now, I just don't think, again, they're people that's on the principle of having to get a Facebook account just for this will not get a Quest. And that sucks.
Yeah, it does, because Facebook is in the crosshairs of a lot of investigations constantly for privacy reasons. Advertisers pull back, politicians are pulling back from Facebook now. And, Congress has them under a microscope for every single little thing that they do. And so does the European Union. So it is very concerning that, Facebook is the only one really pushing this. And then forcing you to have a Facebook account is really bad. It's just a bad idea in general.
Bad idea.
I'd rather have them force you to have a Steam account, because it's less privacy invasive. Yeah, and then I wanted to also bring this up because I think this might be interesting for you, Flamish, as well.
Okay.
A good friend of mine, Chance Glasgow, who is one of the founders of Infinity Ward. He is still developing stuff for VR. He does. He owns a company called Roomy VR in Orlando, right? I know him very well. I met him a couple times in real life. He's a really cool dude. And one of his speeches was that VR would never be ready for gaming unless it hit 90 frames per second per eye, which I think we're just about there with the Quest, I think. I might be wrong, but I think we're there with the Quest.
With the two, yes.
Yes. But he said, at that time, and that was maybe 3.5, 4 years ago, where VR was starting to take off and all the investors were high on their horses, throwing money at VR. And now we're here 4 years later, and you're seeing people leaving the VR space. I even seen people exit it, unfortunately, some of his friends' companies and stuff, and move on to different ventures because the funding for VR is kind of losing its focus. And I mean, we really need to, as a gamer, Flamish, I know you love VR. So this is a place where if you really speak up and tell companies that you love this and you support it and you get people supporting it with you, you'll have companies developing, some more games. But if it loses the focus, Flamish, it's going to be dead after the Quest 2.
Okay, then I'll have the Quest 2 and then I'll don't buy a new one. I mean, I'm happy with my Quest 2. I see so many games that are potentially so great. Also on Steam, Steam has a lot of games. And then you got SideQuest, which is this special website where you can have all these developer demos and stuff you can test out with the Quest. So that's a lot of content. It's just you have to search for it for now. It's not in the open. So, and on the Quest store, it's laughable. When you go in the store in the Quest itself, there's not so much there, and it's not so easy to see what games you want and stuff. Just basically looking where the free games are. Man, that's hard by itself. That's a quest on itself. But no, I love it, man. We'll see what happens in the future. I mean, it did recently only come out, and the new consoles came out. So I guess there's a little bit more attention to the new consoles for now. But maybe it will get traction. We'll see. We'll see. Yeah. So, Dirt 5, Clowns. Because I played this game a little bit more. And there's been some patches out, and I'm like, okay, let's jump into the game again. Let's see how it plays. It plays phenomenally on 120 frames. Because that was the mode I was still playing on. I didn't even notice that until I got into the menus again. But there's one thing I hate about this game that I cannot get over. Just one thing. And that's the missions on the side. Like when you look on the screen right now on the gameplay, you see there's three highlighted things you need to do during a game. And I just like to just race from beginning to end, and just finish my race. But these three little things that give me medals to complete the race, it seems, are just so annoying sometimes that I just need to slow down, go back, and then try to complete it. And then I need to slow down again because I was back in front, and I need to bump into other cars and drift into other cars, and it makes it annoying, I think. So I'm just trying to focus on the racing, but the racing is very fun.
Is this the career mode? Is
yeah,
this the
this is
career
the
mode?
career mode. Yeah.
You know, it's funny because I've been playing. I love this game. I think it's gorgeous. I think it controls beautifully. I
Yeah,
think it's a
that it
perfect
does.
sort of launch game.
Mhm.
Especially when we don't really we didn't get a racer from Microsoft or Sony first party. So yeah, it's a gorgeous game. But I never noticed. It's funny because I focus on the racing as well, and I didn't notice those three things that you sort of have to. I guess you just get more points, so you get more medals for doing them. And I may have done some of them without realizing, but I don't. When it comes to like my career racing, I don't like to be worrying about secondary objectives during the race. I just like to just go and win, and that's it.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna focus on from now because those are just bugging me so hard. I'm like, okay, restart. Okay, restart. Like, I'm like there at the finish almost, and then I got like one not done. I'm like, I need to.
They're criticizing your racing skills in the chat, Flame.
Yeah, I'm playing like it's Wreckfest. I mean, Wreckfest is my game. I love Wreckfest. I'll see if I can find some gameplay on it, by the way, maybe.
Such a fun game. Such a fun game.
It is.
No, I closed one. Damn it. Okay, hold on. What did I close? So okay. I don't care. Let's see some more of this game for now.
We've played a lot of multiplayer on Wreckfest, and
Yeah.
I'll tell you, when you've got a full lobby of people, it's hilarious. It really is.
Especially with me, like I drive into cars, ram them off the road. Especially when I play a bus. When I play a bus, I'm unstoppable. Like if you don't know Lord Sovereign, I'm a bus driver in real life. So I know how it turns. I know how it does all that stuff. So being a boss in this game is like my experience that I already know. So
exactly, you take out all your road rage during the game.
yeah, I love that game so much. It's a must buy for me. It's an older game, but we're doing like these community game nights every Saturday evening. In UK time at 9 UK, we start playing games for the community like Halo, Gears, Wreckfest. We have some Rainbow Six Siege in there and other games. Like there's always like 2 games planned, and we'll see along the way what happens. And that's always done by Mr. Tushi on Twitter. But man, those nights are always fun. Like that's where we all come together as a community, play games, have fun, and that's all that's going on. And a lot of shit talking.
I can imagine.
Yeah, and we had a record like 20 people were in Halo one time. So
Yeah.
that's a lot of people like doing this together. So yeah.
Yeah, Lord Sovereign, if you're ever on game nights, I don't know what your work schedule is like or if you're home, but usually it's Saturdays, and anyone from the realm, is always welcome to join.
Saturdays is usually the day that my wife sort of sequesters me because she doesn't have me any other day. But every now and again, I can, babe, I'm going to go do something. So I'm sure I can sneak away.
Yeah, that'd be awesome, man.
I have to ask because you love Destiny. That's something I do know.
Oh no, I'm the one that doesn't love Destiny.
Oh.
I am the one that's known for not loving Destiny. That is for sure.
Okay, then
So
I'll have to ask Cognito then.
no, but
because-
you can ask me because I mean I know
Okay.
some stuff about Destiny.
Yeah, I wanted to know about the new patch, how it plays now, because yeah.
Oh, well, it hasn't come out yet. The patch,
Oh.
the 60 FPS patch comes out Tuesday. So these guys are super
Oh.
excited for that.
Yeah, I noticed. Like last time I was talking to Cognito on I think it was Retro Renegades or Klaus's show. But yeah, he was talking about that. Where he was really excited for a 60 frames patch
Yeah.
because he isn't playing until then.
Well, yeah, he's been playing. The thing is, he's been playing on PC, right? Once he got a new PC and he tried
Yep.
Destiny there for the first time, he said, "I can't go back to the console." And then once they finally announced the specs, how it was going to run on the Series X, and he said, "Okay, I'm coming back home once we get that." And he was expecting it to be at launch, and obviously he got a little bit disappointed, and they pushed it back a little bit. But so they're all like all the lords are just kind of pining for Tuesday to get their hands on that 60 FPS on console.
Okay, so guys, now on the screen I'm gonna show you Immortal Phoenix Rising. This is the beginning of the game, like the first hour and a half. I'm just gonna let you see it, how it plays. So if you don't like spoilers, I would just yeah. I'll maybe skip the beginning cutscene so you don't see it. Maybe that's like the only thing I can do. There's gonna be no sound, just the game itself. So I hope I don't piss you all off by showing a game of on the street. Yeah, but man, this game was really amazing so far. Like I said before, so yeah. No man.
Did it meet your expectations, Flemish? Because you were really looking forward to this one, weren't you?
More than my expectations, buddy.
Okay.
This game is what I wanted out of an like it's stupid. You have Assassin's Creed Odyssey, right? And I've been playing that like 2 weeks before the Series X launches. I've been going back into the game because I haven't finished it yet. And I still haven't finished it yet. I finished the main story, but I still need to kill more people to get all the cult revealed and stuff. So I haven't finished the game completely yet. I haven't done the DLCs. And when I look into this game, everything that Assassin's Creed stands for is in this game, but the good things about Assassin's Creed, all the bad things about Assassin's Creed is gone. That's not here. And then you got Breath of the Wild mixed in with the puzzles and the vaults that you have to go into. It's like the little dungeons, I would say, in Breath of the Wild. It's so much fun. It teaches you all the mechanics over time. You have to level up your weapons, but you don't have to level individually weapons. You have like one overall stat of weapons that you have to level up, and you have multiple weapons, and then you have god abilities, and it's really cool. It's lovely. It looks beautiful. If you look at the gameplay here, you can see it looks beautiful on the Series X in 4K mode. Yeah, that's I can't keep talking about this game. I can tell some incredible stories. I would say the game for me is like I'm not saying a 10 out of 10, but 9.5.
Wow.
I have so much fun. I can't stop playing this game.
I gotta hand it to Ubisoft. Honestly, when I heard this game was coming out in the same sort of window as Assassin's Creed and Watch Dogs, I said, "Oh, one of these things is they're sending it out there to die, right?" That's what I thought, because I'm like, I guess it's not as good a game as people wanted it to be. Whatever. It was just it's sort of that expectation, kind of with the rule of three, that one of them has to be not great. But I gotta give it to Ubisoft. They understand this formula. They do it well. They understand how to sort of at least evolve the formula a little bit from game to game. They do it every time with Assassin's Creed. Assassin's Creed is always different enough from game to game that I find myself back in every single year, or every 2 years that they release one. Watch Dogs doesn't have that same sort of clout that Assassin's Creed does, but as a game, it's a quality game. It just doesn't have that same, name recognition. And then to bring this brand new IP out and sort of do all those things that you mentioned, I'm gonna be honest. Yeah, I was excited for it, but I thought it wasn't gonna be good. And when I saw the reviews, I said, wow, they really, like, you're talking about 3 big games that Ubisoft is releasing in the launch window of these consoles.
Yeah.
It's kind of bonkers. But they are very good at what they do.
And basically just in a month's time. I mean,
Yeah,
it's only a
crazy.
month for 3 games of Ubisoft. I mean, they're raking in the money now really fast, I would say, with these games. And your wallet is going to be empty. Like, we bought all 3. We bought all 3. I wanted to get the normal edition for this one because there's nothing special. There's like 1 extra mission, but it's nothing to cry about, I would say, for the Ultimate Edition. And then the Season Pass is $10 off if you buy the Ultimate Edition. So for this one, we bought the normal one. Me and Klaus are always game sharing. So he buys a game, I buy a game, and so on. And then for Assassin's Creed, we bought the Ultimate Edition for all the extra stuff. And then also Watch Dogs, we did not the Ultimate Edition, but the one before. Because the Ultimate Edition was just some extra skins, and we were not really for the skins. I mean, they're just a waste of money, I feel. Like buying the extra skins with the collector's edition while you have enough stuff in the game. Okay, I will sometimes buy something in the store that looks incredible, but mostly what's in the before the game comes out is not really incredible, I would say. It doesn't look that eye-popping. And they do have some sort of store here as well, so...
I'll put on stuff that you get from to the Ubisoft points, the Ubisoft Connect points that you go in and you unlock certain things, and then certain things you can use. So whatever cool stuff is in there, I usually unlock with those Ubisoft points, and that's about it. I usually don't buy cosmetics unless there's really, really something that stands out to me, and that's even then I'll just be like, nah, it's not worth it. But I gotta say, like, a lot of times I don't buy the extra stuff, the Ultimate Editions for Ubisoft games, because I don't know how far I'm going to get in them. And then, when it comes to Assassin's Creed, I'm just lying to myself because I know I'm going to go and finish that game. You should have just bought the whole thing. Like,
yeah, I'm the same with Assassin's Creed. It's one difference. Like with Odyssey, I didn't do that because I didn't have the cash for it back then. Yeah. But man, otherwise I always buy the Ultimate Editions or the Collector's Editions. Like, for Assassin's Creed 3, when that came out in the beginning, I really loved that statue with
Connor. Oh yeah,
with Connor on the rock with the American flag behind it.
Yeah,
that was a really beautiful statue.
Yeah, that game gets a lot of bad rap. I like that game.
That game was good. I mean, I loved it. I go back into the history. That's what I love about my Assassin's Creed games. You go back into the history. And they do a really good job about bringing that history to life, how it was back then. So you actually can learn how they lived back then, how they, what they all did, how all went over there. That's something I really love about Assassin's Creed, and that always draws me in that world. How they bring it all to life.
I tell you, I love all of the different places that they go with Assassin's Creed. But I don't know, I may be alone on this, but I'm one of those people that really wants them to make a fantastic modern day Assassin's Creed. I want them. Yes. I really want them to do that well. Like, people kind of, they don't. The general consensus is that when they put it into regular Assassin's Creed games, nobody wants to see that. It's just kind of thrown in there. It feels, and it's not an integral part of the story. They just want to continue to play the Assassin's Creed game in the time period that they're playing it in. But I really think if they gave me a Templars versus Assassin game in modern times, I would really love that. And I hope that's what they're working towards at some point. But who knows? Because I thought they were going to do that after 3. And after 3, after the entire Ezio trilogy, that's where I figured they were going with it. And then, when they kill off, a protagonist there, I was like, okay, maybe they're not going that way with it.
I'm still waiting on that story. What happens after he killed himself? Like, what happens with Minerva? it's like, they're not continuing that story. I need to know.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys agree with me on that one, but I really do want a modern day one.
I'm when you think about Assassin's Creed, I mean, Watch Dogs is basically also
That
about being on about freedom, but it's with hacking. But you
Mhm.
could see that as a modern day Assassin's Creed, somewhat.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if one day they link the assassins to whatever I forgot what they called them
The
Dead
in
sec,
Cell.
Watch Dogs. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I hope so. Actually, that would be a really nice tie-in. I think it makes perfect sense
Hmm.
if you're thinking about it. I mean, you also have towers inside Watch Dogs. So. And in this game, they made it a little bit better. You have a few places that you have to discover, and then you see the whole map. And when you go a little bit later in the gameplay, you will see that I need to scan everywhere on the like I have to see stuff, and then basically reveal it by watching by looking at the stuff. It's really cool. I think it's really cool. You will see that a little bit later on. I'll explain when we go there. Um, by the way, thanks for all coming, guys. So give a shout out to the chat, like Monkey Punch, God's Greek. We got Dominic, one of my co-workers, I have to say. AKW, welcome all. We got Crazy Greed Dude, Punk Soul, Noof Nukem, maybe a few others. Six Layer and Picon Fusion. Thank you guys. Oh, welcome. If you got some questions as well for Lord Sovereign, Clowns, me, or Anime Devil, you can always ask them. We're not shy of questions, of course. I mean, I do read all of the chat. When it's this low amount of people, you can actually do that, and you can interact a lot more with the community that is watching you and is there to view you. So. I mean, it must be crazy on your chat, I think, in Iron Lords.
Our chat gets a little bit crazy, man. But again, we remember the days when it was just a couple of people in there, and it's always about word of mouth and just time and just time. Like we were saying before, like when it comes to a lot of times the fact that we don't sort of engage in like in sort of like the arguments and stuff like that over consoles and stuff like that. So a lot of times that's what draws people to certain channels because they want to see those type of arguments. So we're not really that. Like we'll talk about the stuff, we'll joke about it. Obviously King David loves to joke about it and stuff, but he purchases every single console and he's going to play all of these games. So
Yep.
For us, it's we love the way that we are in that regard, and sometimes that means that the growth is going to be a little bit slower because people just don't oh, that's not what they want to hear. They want to hear arguments, they want to hear this, that, and the other. But no, keep doing what you're doing. I love this format where you're just playing the game and talking about the game, because even on our own podcast, I think I've mentioned this a few times, like sometimes we don't dive deep enough into just games, right? We'll talk about things that are going on around the game, or we'll give initial impressions about a game when it comes out.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't really like do something like this where the game is playing in the background and we're talking about our experiences with it, for an extended period of time. This is super cool. I love this because
Well, I can tell you something else because my channel was actually not like this. My
Uh-huh.
channel previously, I was using other people's gameplay and videos, like interesting videos. My show was even more random than this. So what happened was like we were talking about random stuff like cooking, and I was just looking up a cooking video on YouTube and just playing that in background. And I was talking about cakes and stuff, and then we went from there. We went to let's say someone's talking about a Chinese new game show, like with when we were talking about Fall Guys in one of our
Yeah.
episodes. Yeah, we know that is from Tekashi's Castle. That where it comes from. So I was looking up Tekashi's Castle and looking that up and putting that on the screen. And even when someone said something interesting, I just looked it up and put it on from YouTube on the screen. So that's how my show worked back in the day.
Yeah.
But that's not allowed anymore. Like I can get banned for that, and I don't want that to happen. So
Really?
basically,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like you cannot show other people's YouTube videos. Like it's not something that you should do. But I was like just starting out. I didn't know what to do. I'm like
Right.
finding my own identity, and I wanted to be random as hell. Like every time I wanted to be random. So.
And I love that. I love the randomness of it. Like again, if with us, like we've had to sort of tone it down, or else we'll have like 5-hour podcasts every Sunday. But we're notorious for having like a 2-hour long intro because we'll talk about fighting, we'll talk about whatever we're doing, and that usually takes a while. It does it's sort of just like our weekly catch up before we start talking about the topics. And oftentimes the weekly catch up will be like an hour and a half to 2 hours long. And people like, to the point is, before we started putting in timestamps, people that listen to the show would put the timestamp in for us. Like, hey, in case you're wondering, this is when the actual show starts. But I love that. I love that because to me, that's what makes you genuine, right? Just to come on and be yourself. Even if it does, kind of, if you're not really paying attention to the clock or whatever, I don't mind that. I like the fact that the camaraderie and the sort of the chemistry comes through. So, and however long that takes, whatever, I'm fine with that.
I appreciate it a lot. That's what I love about this show in general. Like it's something that hasn't been like it's not really done that much, I would say. I'm maybe one of the only ones that just goes with it. Like Retro Rain Gates is where I got it from, I think, but it just like it went into the flow of it. I did not just copy Retro Rain Gates because that's also a show that I host and be on. I think I just found something that clicked and I went with it. So it's really cool, I have to say. Like doing this stuff, and I really enjoy it a lot.
I agree.
And even if people like, they can send in gameplay as well, like if they want. I don't say that enough, but I haven't had a single piece of gameplay from someone else yet. But I'm basically desperately playing like recording more games that I'm playing to actually show off my gameplay now, because I cannot watch YouTube videos anymore. So I'm actually need to be on Twitch all the time and record more of my own gameplay. And yeah, sometimes I do suck at my games, and they will see that. So now I can.
So I have a question of just this part that you showed right now.
Yeah.
So did the game have a leap of faith mechanic? Because she just looked like she jumped off and she looked horrible. like she was.
There is no leap of faith mechanic. The first time I did this, like, hold on, let me go back a little bit in the gameplay, right?
She was like flailing, falling to her death.
Yeah. So after she's done here with the scanning part, and I'm gonna jump off. Like I jump into a rock and I basically smack myself because I didn't think there was, like, they say, yeah, you can jump down below, right? So I'm like, okay, where is this something? Okay, so I'm looking around. I see a pool of water over there. Okay, I should just jump into the pool of water. So I jump, and then I basically just fall into the other rocks because I cannot make it. So like, whoops, okay, that's going on.
Yeah, that's not happening. It's funny about Hala. I don't know if it changes later on, but I'm still not at the point where like Ivor is doing a leap of faith. Like he just sort of jumps feet first into the water. I don't know if that changes later on, but it's kind of funny to see that because he jumps. And the first time I did it, a lot of times when you synchronize a point, there isn't even an obvious place to jump down to. So it's basically like, no, don't jump down. You have to climb back down. Like, so it's kind of cool that he's not sort of indoctrinated into the assassins yet, at least in my gameplay yet. So he doesn't do any of that stuff.
Yeah, I'm just past the beginning of the game, like when you leave Norway and go to England. And I did a little bit in England, but I have put the game down for now because of all the bugs, the saving issues. Same with Watch Dogs. Like I tried to game that, but as soon as Klaus said, again that there's more issues. I'm like, yeah, sorry, I'm not gonna. Like,
Clowns had some serious issues with that game, didn't they? Watch
yeah, 12-hour gameplay,
Yeah.
just
Really?
yeah.
Yeah,
I've
you really
lost
did, man,
more
didn't you?
than probably like 20 hours in that game already.
Yeah, the time just sort of flies when you play those, man. It's before you know it, it's like, oh, I played 10 hours. How did that happen?
I think
And
I'm around this time for Phoenix Rising until now. But the only thing I did is I haven't even following the main story. I'm just like going from place to place, like scan everything and just going from dungeon to dungeon, puzzle to puzzle, and go on. Like that's how you should play the game. I feel as well. Like it's. I'm not saying how you should play a game, but that's like I feel that's the right play for me, like how I should play it. So yeah. Yeah, it's
yeah,
fun.
these Ubisoft games, what I tend to do is that I try to do as much of the map as I can, and then by the time you get back to the main storyline, you're so overpowered for the enemies in the main storyline. That's why I appreciated what Odyssey did with the sort of scaling enemies. So they were always maybe like 1 or 2 levels above me, so it was always a challenge no matter what. It kind of messes up, the feeling of power that you get from progression, but it does keep the gameplay interesting all the way through. So at the end of the game, you're just not, railroading everything. But but that's my own fault too, because I play these games that way. Like I like to clear out the map first, and then I'll play the story as much as possible.
Okay. And what I can say about this, because Clowns was actually daring me to play on hard, and I never play my games on hard. I always play them on easy because I like to enjoy my games. I don't like it really that challenge. Like Zemi says the same thing. Like my life is a challenge enough. I don't like a challenge in my games. I like to be that badass that destroys everything when he walks into the room, like in Assassin's Creed or something. So yeah, playing this game on hard, it's not that bad actually. You just when you level up a little bit more in the game, I think it gets better, but it's not that bad. It just takes a little bit longer to kill them, but overall the enemies are beautifully done. The combat is beautifully done as well. So and I'm talking enough about this game for now. I would say, like, buy it if you want, guys, but it's a must buy. It's a Flamish must buy with a big thumbs up.
Visually, looking at your videos, it's stunning with the really bright colours and the sort of dumbed down art style.
Yeah.
If I can say that, it visually it looks really appealing.
In HDR, this looks so beautiful. With my OLED TV, the colors pop. Like I'm not saying this not, but OLED just gives that little bit more natural color gamut instead of a QLED or any other 4K TV. So it really brings the colors to life. I feel it just gives that little more oomph. So yeah, it's my thing.
Yeah, it's gonna be once they start implementing Dolby Vision HDR
Oh
into
my
games.
god, yes.
Yeah, it's really gonna take
Yes, I can't wait.
couple of months. It should be coming.
Yeah, I know. I can't wait. So yeah, Lord Sovereign, take us a little bit more back to what's your history been like? Talk about.
So for me, like I've known Cognito and King for probably 30 years. I went to school with Cognito,
Wow.
and then I met King through him after. I guess it was the beginning of college. I basically, and when I say I went to school with Cognito, this was like elementary school. Like we were together in like third grade. So what happened was I went away to school for high school, and I kind of stopped hanging out with all these guys. And then when I came back, I started hanging out with the crew again. And that's when, after he had met King David. So then David, immediately became part of the group, and I came back into the group, and basically we've been tight like this for ever since. Again, like I said, like 30 years total or more even. And so for us, like when you see the dynamic for that we have on the show, it really is just like me talking to my brothers. Like it really is that thing where it's like, we've known each other for so long. it's just something that happens naturally. And then Addict also sort of fits into that perfectly. But yeah, I mean, so that's my history in terms of, you know, how I got to know these guys. And, you know, since that early age, we've been gaming. You know, we were gaming. My first console was, I got to play a little bit of the original sort of Pong home console with the overlays and stuff like that. So I played some of that in television as well. The first one that was actually in my home was a 2600. And so, you know, 2600 onto the Sega Master System, NES, you know, Super Genesis and stuff like that. We basically played every single console that's ever been out. And I've always loved gaming, and I don't know if you heard on our show, like for us, gaming was a big savior for us, and Clowns can attest to this as well. Like we, you know, growing up in New York City in the Bronx, where we did, it wasn't the most savory environment ever, and there were a lot of opportunities for you to get into a lot of trouble and doing things you should not be doing. So, you know, gaming saved us and kind of took us away from that. And we always talk about, you know, Cognito's mother and how she sort of opened up her doors to, you know, sometimes anywhere from 10 to 15 guys to coming into her house on the weekend just to play video games.
Oh, wow.
But it kept us off the streets, and got us to sort of focus our energies on more positive things, you know. And back then, like today, a lot of parents would be like, "Oh, you know, you're killing your brain playing these video games and this, that, and the other." But you know, but when you see, you know, 50-year-old men playing video games, you know that there's something to it, and it's one of those things that it's such a wonderful hobby. For me, again, beyond the fact that, you know, I wasn't in the streets, you know, doing other things, and I was home playing video games. But it teaches you a certain level of camaraderie with the people that you're with all the time. Like I said, these guys are like my brothers, and it's because of that. And you know, when we look back at why those friendships are the way they are, it is because of the times that we had playing video games together, and the things that we did around that. Because from video games came, you know, the communally watching kung fu movies, you know, communally watching boxing and wrestling and MMA and stuff like that. So we sort of do everything that has to do with our entertainment, we did together. So, and that's just, you know, I'm just so glad that we have a platform now that we can show people that, and what we've always done. And we try to be as, you know, as kind of like kid friendly as we possibly can. But back in the day, we were not kid friendly at all. Like they were like, we used to really, there was some very colorful language that went around when it came to but it's fun. But at the end of the day, the love of the games and of each other has always been there. And that's what it is. And so we feel blessed to be able to have a platform now where we can essentially do the stuff that we were doing, you know, 20, 25 years ago. Because more often than not, when you grow up, you sort of leave stuff behind, and that's it. But this isn't that. Like when it comes to gaming, you know, the fact that it sort of evolved with us is amazing to me. And as somebody who was around, and Clowns knows this as well, when, you know, we were around when the 2600 sort of crashed and gaming in general crashed, and I was devastated. And I was fairly young, and so when it first happened and I didn't understand what was happening, my dad took me to this sort of discount store, and he gave me $20, and he said, "Go buy as many Atari games as you can." And and I was like, okay. And with the $20, I was able to get 40 games. And I'm like, how does this happen? Why are these games 50 cents a piece? I was elated. I was elated until you realize why that's the case. And I was old enough to understand. It's like, okay, I have these 40 games. That's great. But after that, there's nothing. And he explained to me why there was nothing. It's like this whole thing crashed. I don't know if it's coming back or not. So that, you know, for a kid, you know, who was however old I was at the time, you know, 6 or whatever, it hit me like, I'm not going to get any more of this. What's going on? Like, so that's why I try to be when it comes to talking about games and stuff, I don't like calling anything trash. Like I don't like
Yeah.
putting anything 100% down. I'll do it playfully. Like I always call Destiny trash or whatever. But you know, to really talk down about a developer or a game or something like that, because I remember the time when it was possible that we would never get that again. You know. And then obviously, you know, Nintendo did what Nintendo did, and the rest is history. But had that not happened, we may not be here right now. So it's always been very important to me to kind of sort of be in an environment where we talk positively about this thing that we love as much as possible, and sort of give it props all the way around, even the stuff that we don't necessarily think is the greatest or that we like.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Like, positivity is the only way for me. Like, if you talk negatively about gaming, you're just bringing more negative stuff to yourself. I think that's something that should never. Oh my god, there I go again. Yeah, this map was really killing me a lot, I would say. Just saying.
There are a couple of maps on dirt, man. Like the ice maps, they kind of kill me.
Oh yeah, I could not be first on that map. Like, that's at the end of this video, but man, that map was, and then trying to 3 challenges on top of that. Yeah, good luck.
Yeah, forget about that.
No, Animated Evil, do you have a question? Because you've been very quiet so far.
I've just been enjoying the chat. Really, it's been
I've
a
seen it.
lovely conversation. Stuff just completely lost in our honoured guests.
No, but you guys,
really,
I don't know you guys well, so definitely, I love to hear what you guys, your history, how you came to all of this, because again, that's what sort of makes that's why we have 5-hour shows sometimes, when we get into the history with our guests, and then all of a sudden we have all this shared history and we never get to the topics.
Yeah, I can definitely go in on that if you want.
Yeah, maybe I should start first, and then you can enter at the time.
Yeah, yours will be shorter. You're not an old man like me, Flamish, so you go for it, sir.
Okay, because mine takes a little bit longer, of course. Yeah, so I've been gaming for a long time, and I always wanted to do something with YouTube, because me personally, I don't want to blow stuff up, but I know I have this special like personality that's likable for many people. I've heard this so many times in my life that I'm just a likable guy, and my excitement for everything that I do and my positivity always shines through. Except when I play a hard video game, then just get off the rails. Like then I get mad, and then I get cursing and stuff. But normally I'm always positive. But no, just in general, I started doing YouTube, like Twitch, 7 years ago. I've stopped after a while because I had other stuff going on, and then I haven't touched YouTube in years, and Twitch. But recently, I know Jay. So Graphic God, you probably know him, lots of them. Also, the people in chat probably know him. He's a really great guy that does a lot of graphics for different people, and he made one logo for me because I know him from the old show called MNC Mornings, where some stuff happened and he was gone from it. And I'm gonna go into details on that. There is some show that you can look that up. I'll probably look it up and put it in the description if I can find it again. So if people are interested, later on in the description you'll find that show, where he talks about what happened with MNC, because not many people know that. And I think more people should know that there are certain people in the podcast scene that have a certain allure, but they're different behind the scenes. So I'm not gonna talk too much about that because it's still negative for me personally. But just want to throw it out. But basically, I started to know Jay. He was talking to me because I needed a new gamer pick, of course, which you are seeing right now, the beautiful creation again. And he told me he has a podcast going on called Retro Renegades, and I was invited on the show. So yeah, and as soon as I was invited on the show, I want to be a regular. And that came to be true. And then I started doing my own thing on YouTube because I always wanted to do my own thing on YouTube. And I started doing my own show. I was playing Last of Us Part 2 at that time. And I really loved that game. Like, the story was good. I love the characters, the world building, everything like in the game. I know it has a lot of negativity around it, but I really liked the game so far when I played. And I did an actual really big, like 2 hour, 3 hour, deep.
Like a spoiler cast.
Yeah, something like that maybe, but just go deep into the game with a Supersonic Station, who's from Veteran Gates, and we talked about the game for 3 hours. But I went into every single detail, all the characters, all the things that you can do in the game. There's even a thing with the saves that you can actually hear them when you are at the right combination. It's cool. So I went really deep into the game, and from there I have my own show. And just grew and grew, and then normally I was like, okay, I'm going deep into the games, and then it just started to get more and more random. So I'm like, okay, I really like this format. I'm staying random. So that's what I did, and then I did a lot of shows, and then I met Clowns on a Gamers United Guild, where we have a lot of people banding together as a community and sharing each other's Twitter like announcements and stuff. What we do over there. I'm part of it, but I'm not part of it. Like I'm not a main GOG member. I'm a member, but not like my podcast is not a member of GOG. But yeah, it's great over there. And then Clowns was I need someone to help me, and then I talked to him, and we went on to do our own thing. Like, he will probably talk about it as well a little bit later. And then after a couple of shows, I met Animated Evil on one of the community game nights, and he will tell more.
I will. Thank you. No, it's good to hear how you started, though, Flamish. To be fair, it's always a nice insight. For me, gaming started way back when in 1986. So I'm not young.
I still think I'm the oldest one, though. Here, I think I am.
Possibly. We'll see. Yeah. So back in 1986, I was a very young child. My parents bought me an Atari 600 XL, I believe. So I was spoilt a little bit. From then, I went on to the Spectrum. I don't know if any of you ever remember the Spectrum 128 with the cassette tapes and stuff. Now, nobody can complain to me about loading times until you've had a cassette tape load for 45 minutes and still crash. So from then it was straight into the Mega Drive, and then I was predominantly PlayStation after that. So I got the Mega CD as well, but straight into PlayStation 1, which I think to this day was probably the biggest mark to a point where it switched over to bigger, better games. PlayStation 1 when it launched was just brilliant. Had a PlayStation 2, and then the guy I was sharing a house with said, "Look, just play on this," and it was the original OG Xbox. And he sat me down. I thought, "What is this controller? It's horrible." Sat there. I'm used to the PS2 controller, and I played Full Spectrum Warrior, and I've been Xbox ever since.
Wow. That's the one. That's the one that caused you to come over Full Spectrum.
It was, yes, that exact game, yes. And then obviously back into 360, and then the Xbox One, and yeah.
I tell you, this is what I love about this: the fact that besides the shared histories, right? Yeah, obviously we all played certain games or whatever, but it's those moments that how you came to something and how you how you became enamored with something, because everyone's story in that regard is a little bit different, right? How it happened, who brought you to it, the experience that you had. And that, to me, that's the coolest stuff about these stories, is like, oh man, like, yeah, this guy, I randomly went to somebody's house and they had this thing called Xbox. I'd never heard it before, and they sat me in front of this game, and it was like today we had K Mega on, and K Mega basically was like, he knew nothing about Xbox. And, he goes to a friend's house and they're getting ready to go out for, Saturday night, go to a club or whatever. And next thing you know, they played Halo for like 15 hours straight into the next morning. And it was just them trying to figure this game out, and then realizing what it was. And that was basically how we came to it. Like, we were all in on Halo day one, the launch of the original Xbox. We were all in on it, but we had no idea what that multiplayer would be. And it was like the second weekend that the console was out, we all got together and we came to each other's houses like, hey, let's try this multiplayer thing. And we didn't have a LAN, we didn't have LAN cables back then. We didn't have a router or anything like that. So we didn't know that we could yet do that stuff, but we just did 4-player split screen, and we were there for hours and hours on end. And it was this thing where I was like, wait, this is special. This is special. And then when we found out about the other stuff, we're like, all right, we have to go do this. Like, we have to go purchase, between all of us, we would all put in some money. We would purchase extra TV monitors so that we could have more monitors to link. And it was just like this thing that was like, oh my God. Like, and I will never, ever forget that Halo, for me, the beginnings of my love for Halo will always be linked to that story. So you telling me those stories, that's what I love about this, right? That everybody comes to love something, but it can happen from such a different perspective.
Well, Sovereign, do you remember my story from back in the day?
Oh yes, you reiterate, but I remember Daddy Clowns had a big influence.
Yeah. So I mean, in all honesty, my dad was always a gamer. Like, he, growing up in Brooklyn, he loved pinball machines, right? And he loved pinball, so he was a big pinball player and other stuff. And so when I was growing up as a kid at 3 years old, my dad already had several pizza places, and he had arcade machines in there because he had a deal with a friend of his who owned, I guess, a warehouse full of arcade machines. And he would rotate different arcade machines out. But I was 3 years old, and there was this 1982 arcade cabinet called Pac-Man. And I was actually 3 years old in 1982. And he puts me up on a chair, pops in a quarter, and says, play. And as soon as I saw those dots go on the screen and that sound of Pac-Man, I loved video games ever since then. And my dad supported that habit through the Atari 2600. We had the Sears knockoff version, though. But, I mean, every Atari game that came out, we got it. Then when we had Intellivision as well, we had stuff from Coleco. We had the original Pong, I believe, that hooked up to the TV. And when the Nintendo Entertainment System came out, my dad actually got it a little bit earlier than other people. He had a lot of friends in Brooklyn, and sometimes things just landed a little bit earlier. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and
we know about the connects.
Yeah. So I got the one with Robbie the Robot, and the Gyromite and all that.
Yeah.
And as soon as he plugged that in, I sat first. See, this is what he did. He got a TV and brought it to the porch outside in our backyard and hooked it up outside because he's like, oh man, you're never going to want to stop playing this. And I was like, yeah, I don't know. Maybe we'll go back and watch cartoons. He puts in Robbie the Robot, Duck Hunt. We were out there all night long with my cousins playing, I want to say like 10, 12 hours straight. Who can get the highest score in Duck Hunt? Who can get Robbie the Robot to work properly?
Yeah.
And man, ever since then, we had every console iteration that ever came out. My dad got us every single game that ever came out for Nintendo, Sega Genesis, Super Nintendo, The only thing that he did not let us play in the house or even go out and want to buy was Neo Geo, which I don't know why he was against that thing.
He was.
And
It wasn't the price. The price was kind of bonkers, but
I mean that could have had something to do with it. And he didn't. We didn't get the Atari Lynx. Didn't have that. But everything else. Oh, and Sega Master System because he said Nintendo was better. He said that Sega thing was gonna die. He's like, don't worry about that. Just play Nintendo. So
He was right.
yeah.
I love
And
my
I-
Master System.
Man, I was hooked ever since then, man. Like there's just that Nintendo Entertainment System, the bright colors at the time and on that 480p TV, Mega Man, it just looks so good. I mean, you cannot compete. Look how well Super Mario Brothers 3 turned out, and that was on Nintendo Entertainment System.
The third one was gold. I played that
Yeah.
so much. There was so much to do in that game and so much to discover. Like all the secret maps. Holy damn!
Yeah, that game. Those are the games that last. Like they transcend generations. It doesn't matter. You play that game right now, and it'll blow away a number of different games.
Yeah.
It's when it's funny because you hate talking like you're an old man sometimes, but it's like there's certain things about gaming back in the day that I just wish were still here because I don't think kids today are going to. They're not going to be able to experience some of the things that we went through as first timers, like obviously with everything being online now or not. And even when it comes to like picking up a console, the same way launches used to be back in the day, it just doesn't really happen that way anymore. There's so much about the culture of gaming that has changed that is just not, you're not going to see those things again. So, when I talk nostalgically about that stuff, man,
Double Dribble.
Oh my God.
Oh
yeah,
yes, with
that
the
was
two
a
little
fun
guys.
game.
I was actually playing that co-op with my brother a lot. My brother was a few years older than me, but man,
Blades of Steel.
Man,
those were the days, man. And you know what? We can say to the people today, Sovereign, but they might hate us for this, but this is honesty, right?
Yeah.
Beating any of the Mega Mans without Game Genie is harder than Dark Souls.
It is, because Dark Souls, if you think about it, Dark Souls is it's polished compared to what those games were back then, right? Those games were genius back then in terms of motion, in terms of controls and stuff like that, but it's still very simplistic. So, for them to make gameplay that's that difficult and that unforgiving without in still what I would call not the most super polished state, it's not the same as a hard game today. It just isn't. Because back then you were, besides the difficulty of the game, you were fighting sort of against the machine itself a little bit because, it's just, you had flicker, you had all this stuff. The machines and the tech wasn't perfect. So there was that added to in addition to just the games being, the old console games still sort of held the arcade mentality. Where it was like in the arcades, they made the game as difficult as possible to get as much money out of you as possible, right? And so when those games made the transition to the home, they didn't really think about making that switch and how the game sort of played per se. So you had equally difficult games at home. Yes, you didn't have to put in quarters to play, but it was still equally frustrating to play a game like Mega Man. And to think about playing that type of game in the arcade where you spend $100 probably to get past a couple of bosses and that's it. So it is crazy, man. Those old games are very, very difficult. If you were hardcore back then and you were a good gamer back then, like anything difficult you see in this day and age is nothing to you because that was tough. Yeah, and I suck. I give big ups to my brother all the time. When I was young, I was jealous that he was a better gamer than me. But the fact of the matter was, he was a much better gamer than me. And when it came to these platforming games and stuff like that, I just rather let him sit and play them and me watch because it was kind of bonkers how good he was. It was just this sort of savant thing where, where it came to like platforming and stuff like that. It's crazy.
Yeah, Saab, that's very true because we grew up in a generation where there was like 3 lives hardly any continues if we were lucky, and the continues would set you back hours if you use the continue. And
Yeah.
passwords all had to be written down because they were so weird. Like there was no saves on those cartridges.
Nope. 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 Even like do you remember when I remember the first battery backed up cartridge that I got, and I think it was Final Fantasy whatever something, and it cost like $150 that cartridge.
Wow.
Yeah, people talk about the prices of games nowadays. Back then, games like regularly, $70-$80, and I used to import a lot of games, so that jumped that almost doubled some of those prices a lot of the time. Like it's a crazy expensive hobby, and where we've been for the past decade or so is very unexpected to me. Honest, I thought we would see higher prices than what we're getting right now, maybe 5-6 years ago. So yeah, that's another thing. Yeah, you don't know what high prices in video games are. And talking about Neo Geo, $200 cartridges.
Yeah, that because that was like they try to brag that was like the arcade experience at home. Remember? And it was like,
and it was literally the arcade experience at home. What is this big cartridge thing?
Yeah,
it was bigger than a VHS tape. And I remember I tell the story a lot where there used to be a store called Nobody Beats the Wiz. And
I remember that place.
Yeah, so after school, Kag and I used to go, and they would have the Neo Geo on display for gaming, and you can try it out or whatever. And we would play Baseball Stars, we would play Magician Lord, and something else. I think they had Final Fight or something like that. Not Final Fight, Fatal Fury. So we'd be there sometimes for an hour after school, and they'd kick us out because they're like, "Are you gonna buy this?" And we'll look at the guy like, "Really? Do you think we're gonna buy this?" No, we came here to play Neo Geo. We came here to play the demo like 20 times. But yeah, it was. I think the console was $1,000. The games were $200 to $300 a piece. It was definitely out of a lot of people's price ranges. But King had it. I didn't know King back then yet, so I wasn't able to see a lot of it. But man, Neo Geo. That was like the dream back then. Anybody with a Neo Geo, that was your best friend.
Yeah, I can say I never had one, and also I think I understand the question a little bit wrong because I didn't know we're talking about back in the day how we met gaming, instead of how I met my channel.
Oh, but that's fine. That absolutely, man. We could add to that Excel. For me, when it comes to like the podcasting and the YouTube stuff, I kind of got brought in, kind of kicking and screaming because I told Cog I didn't want any parts of this. And when he transitioned, because he started the Iron Lords podcast as a Destiny podcast with Addict and two other lords. So what happened was that they started thinking about transitioning it away from just a Destiny podcast and making it a regular podcast. So right about when that happened, the two other lords decided that they just couldn't stay on and have the commitment to the podcast that they had prior to it. So then Cog was looking for two other panelists. And at that point, he was like, well, let me bring in Sav and King because we've been doing this for years. And it was an opportunity for us to sort of get to hang out in the ways that we had done before. Because obviously when you grow up, you still keep up with your friends, but not in the same way. And this would give us an opportunity to sort of continue that camaraderie, that sort of chemistry that we have, and hang out the way that we used to. And again, I was like, I don't know, man. I don't want to, talking on the radio, to me, it was like talking on the radio and stuff like that. I was like, I don't want to do that. So I did it reluctantly. And then, I couldn't be happier that I did it because again, it gives me a little bit of my childhood back to be able to sort of hang out with my friends in the way that I used to. And then to see how people react to us, it's a really good feeling. It's a good feeling that it knows that, that we tell our story and people sort of vibe with that and people appreciate that and people gravitate to it. So, despite not wanting to do it early on, I'm so happy that we're doing this. Very happy.
Yeah, I can say the same thing about my show. Like, I'm so happy that I'm doing is connecting with people, talking about video games in just any matter, you know. Mostly positive. I haven't really got any negative people on yet, so. But no, let me go back to my stuff because where I started gaming, right, was when I was 3 years old as well. But I'm like 29, so I haven't really met the arcade days because in Belgium that's not really big, like it is in America. Like all the stuff you have, like comic books and stuff, baseball cards, all that kind of stuff. Like we don't have that stuff here in Belgium. So the first thing I know about gaming is on the PC with this game called Lego Chess, which was a very fun game to play on the PC because I basically learned how to play chess and basically murder little Lego pieces because they always had like this little cutscene when you slay a piece. They got like little cutscene how they got slain, like with a cannonball or something silly, like it is with Lego, but that was fun. And then later on, we got the Nintendo Entertainment System, the original one. And then we got Duck Hunt and stuff with it. So there was this gun with like flashing light on the screen and stuff. And I'm like, well, I'm shooting these ducks down. It was so much fun. And then yeah, from there I got a lot of different Nintendo games that I played. I played like Zelda 2, which was a very weird game at the time. Like it's still one of the weirdest Zelda games I feel. But trying that game it's so difficult. But it was just trying to nail everything in that game. Well, I did not finish it. I would say too hard. But and from there, yeah, playing a Game Boy on the Super Nintendo then because I got the Super Nintendo Entertainment System, the NES, SNES actually. Then I played a lot of Game Boy games on there. I also had Game Boy, but being able to play Game Boy on a big screen instead of like the small screen in your hands was so much better. So I played Pokemon through there, like the first Pokemon games. They were so much fun. Until a couple of years later, then they got stale. Like they're always the same. And then yeah, PC. From there was on to PC, Diablo 2, one of the big games that I played. I could not even play that from my brother. He would not even let me. I had to sneak in at night after I saw him play a couple of times. I'm like, I want to play, and he says no. So I woke up early. Because I woke up early, I didn't even do it on purpose. And I was like, I'm gonna go on this PC, I'm gonna play Diablo 2. And I played a couple of hours. My brother woke up and he was seeing me play that and was like, ah, you're playing? Yeah, I'm playing Diablo 2 that you're playing. And he's like, ah, and are you doing well? Yeah, I'm doing good. And he just like, okay, I'll let you play. And from there, yeah, always PlayStation. I actually never owned an Xbox until the One X. I did play Halo. I can like remember me playing with the Duke controller with Halo to the campaign with my nephew. That's the one thing I do remember. But for all the other games, I always play PlayStation. I love PlayStation, but I also love Xbox. But I never owned an Xbox. Like the OG, the 360, never owned it. Also at the time, difficult with the way how my life went and stuff. So yeah, it was not really possible as well.
Okay.
But yeah, as soon as I heard Game Pass came out for Xbox, I'm like, I'm buying Xbox. So because I can play all these games, Halo, Gears, I never tried those. So the first thing I did when I got my Xbox One X and I played Halo. I played through the whole Gears collection. Did not finish Gears collection. I got stuck in 2. But man, playing through all the Halo games back to back to back. It's such a cool experience, and they can say whatever they want about 5. I actually enjoyed 5.
Yeah, the thing about 5 for me, it was just that it just felt like, from a technical standpoint, it's a beautiful game and
Yeah.
it plays beautifully. It just felt like the things they promised in terms of the story didn't quite hit. If they had really stuck to like what they showed in the marketing campaign, where it was really Locke versus Chief, and both of them sort of being on the opposite sides of this sort of ideology, I think it would have been great. It just the final game in terms of story didn't pan out that way, but everything else around the game, particularly the multiplayer and stuff like that, it's fantastic. And that's why, it's one of those things where with 343, it feels like they know how to make a great Halo game. They just haven't been able to put it all together in one game. So that's the hope for Infinite, but it's got to be really fun to be able to play all of those games back to back and not have to wait on the story and stuff like that. I remember the end of Halo, 2, talking about, I got to finish this fight, and then you don't finish the fight. And it's like, what the hell is going on here? And you're waiting, however many years for Halo 3 to come out. It's the Master Chief Collection, despite its problems when it first came out, is really fantastic. It really is.
Yeah, and I lost you for 2 minutes because my headset was resetting.
Oh,
Can you maybe explain real quickly what you said? I'm
oh
sorry.
no, I was talking about how you talked about Halo and sort of playing them all back to back. The fact that the Master Chief Collection is kind of fantastic for that, and my feelings on Halo 5, which was the Halo 5, is from technical standpoint, I think it's a beautiful game. It plays beautifully, it runs beautifully. The multiplayer is great. It's just one of those things that it sort of like. The story didn't hit for me the way that they sort of promised when it came to the stuff that between Locke and Chief didn't really hit the way sort of the marketing made it seem like it would.
Okay.
So that was disappointing for me story wise, but everything else about the game technically can't really complain about.
See, I'm gonna maybe divide chat here right now, but because I missed the first Halo, obviously I was PlayStation before I got the Xbox. I didn't bother with any of the Halos at all. But I am, so I've never actually finished a Halo game. So, call me all the names you want, it's fine. I understand, they're brilliant. The Master Chief Collection is really good. I've been meaning to run through it with a buddy of mine, but we're yet to hook up and sort it out. But Halo I missed, and it's one of my regrets that I never got it back in the day. If that makes sense.
Like I said, like it was interesting that you said that what brought you to Xbox was Full Spectrum Warrior, because that's like super hardcore. And I remember trying to play that game, and I'm like, what the heck am I doing? I'm like, this seems cool, but I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I don't know where to send these troops. I'm getting picked off. Like it was a super hardcore game. So generally, when people just come to Xbox, Halo will probably be one of the first things that they play. But yeah, man. Again, OG Xbox did have a lot of stuff for a lot of people. Like there was a decent amount of variety on that console. People often say, "Oh, it's the Halo box, it's the first-person shooter box," but it had a lot of variety.
I feel now it does. Like I feel like both consoles are in a really great place when you look at just games to play. Like people don't give enough credit that there's so many games to play. Like it doesn't have to be exclusive. I think when you look at the games in general, like people are always saying we need exclusive, but just playing the games on any console, like it's beautiful, man. In these days, like
there's an argument I've always made is that exclusivity really does help with creating an identity for that ecosystem and that console, and I absolutely agree with that. But at the end of the day, when it is it when you start having arguments about I'm angry that this game that used to be exclusive on this console is coming to another console, like it's like you don't want other people to play the game. Like it's just sometimes the arguments around that get really weird. But yeah, I do think like it's great that each platform has the things that help identify that platform. At the same time, if something happened where whatever all these games happen to be on every platform, I'd be totally fine with that too. That'd be great because that means more people would play all of these games. Because you do have people that are only on one ecosystem, one platform, and never have the intention of touching the other one. So and that kind of sucks because they're gonna miss out on a bunch of stuff from the other platform. So yeah, honestly, again, I understand the identity creating sort of a roster that people can identify with your console. But man, if they were everywhere, I'd be fine with that too.
Yeah, I can agree with that very much. I would say, like so back in the day when I played Halo, right? I'll just backtrack a little bit with the thing. Like I didn't know the story of 5. I didn't see any of the marketing. So if you haven't seen any of the marketing, you didn't know about what people were bitching about. And I did later on see the marketing, like after I finished the game, and that's all. Like, yeah, it doesn't make me sense of what they're watching, but without spoiling myself, I actually I was like, this is great. Come on. But no, when I think about what you're saying about the identity, I mean, they do have an identity. They're always saying PlayStation is single player based, and Xbox is more multiplayer based, and that is starting to maybe not shift a little bit, but it's still in the same ballpark, I would say. But I mean, when I'm looking at where we're heading, right? Because we're always going forward with both consoles. They're both going to a great place, and I can't see people having the same argument of all the stupid stuff they're saying right now in a couple of years. Like it would just be asinine to see that they're not getting better and getting all the stuff done that they need to do.
Yeah, and I think that's that goes back to those the fanboyish arguments where it's like, it'd be crazy to think that Microsoft is spending all this money to not improve their catalog. Obviously, they're looking to improve their catalog, and they're showing that they're willing to do it. I mean, it's very hard to grow something organically, right? So Microsoft has money; they can purchase these things and grow their catalog that way, and then create some stuff organically. But it's tough. I commend Sony for, although Sony has also purchased a bunch of studios, but a lot of the stuff that they've had for a long time, they've turned it into these studios into elite studios, under their tutelage, right? It's not like, Naughty Dog was always this super elite, developer. They've been very good, but, they're on a different level now. And that's been, under Sony's umbrella. So, to me, they are still very much following suit with what they did in the PS4 generation. Why wouldn't they? It's been so successful for them. But I do see them, when they talk about, we may have an answer to Game Pass or stuff like that. They realize, that the industry is sort of heading a certain direction. And as great as a single player, big 30-hour experiences, it's a lot of money to invest into doing that. So, the fact that they're saying that obviously like a game like Miles Morales is a shorter game, the kind of inference that maybe Ragnarok, God of War Ragnarok might not be as long a game as the first one. Same thing with Horizon. They're realizing things about the industry that, that they're moving forward kind of in the same way that Microsoft is, just not as sort of overtly sort of saying it the way Microsoft is, because Microsoft is definitely saying like we're doing this, super differently. Whereas PlayStation has been sort of reluctant to say that outright because they know that, certain parts of their base would be angry at those things. Obviously, the reaction that came out of finding out that Miles Morales would be on PS4 as well as PS5, some people got angry about that. And
It's
You know,
stupid. It's stupid. Come on,
yeah.
more people can like they backtracked on the statement that it's only for next generation. Like so
Mhm.
many people have PlayStation 4, 115, 120. I don't care how much, right?
It's a lot.
There's a lot of people having PlayStations and there's a lot of people having Xbox. But hearing that your games are gonna go like you can play them on the old system, while they in the beginning said it was not possible, that only on PlayStation 5. That's a great statement. I love that.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. It was the funny thing was is just that it goes to show like they came out and outright said, "Hey, this is not it. These games are for next gen only." And then you find out no, that's not the case. It's like, well, then you shouldn't have said that, right? Then you shouldn't have said that. But I agree. As soon as I heard it, I was like, yeah, financially it makes 100% sense. And especially at that moment when you have like the cross generational thing where it's going to be at least 2 years or whatever before you really start transitioning fully to what is now the current gen. It's just one of those things like financially it always makes sense, but when Microsoft came right out and said it, they got a lot of flack for it. And then so Sony just sort of stayed quiet, and so a lot of the argument that we had around that was like, why would they let Microsoft just take that, knowing full well that we're going to do the same thing? And it goes back to how Sony sort of perceives their base and what's important to their base. So it just felt like they wanted to hold on to that information as long as they possibly could before they had to tell people. But at the end of the day, yes, it is the best for everyone. Like, why would you leave 120 people, a million people behind that have a PlayStation 4 Pro? And granted, many of those people are upgrading to the 5 and are going to play it on the 5. I'm a person that said I wasn't going to play it on the PS4. I'm going to play it on the 5. And that's fine, but there are more than plenty of people that are not making that transition now. And it would just be foolish to do that. And that's a very old way of thinking. When you look at it, I said this on our show today, right? I said this on our show today, where it's like we're never going to see a leap like we saw from the SNES to like the N64, right? Or when the PlayStation first came out and it was revolutionary. Those big leaps we're not going to see anymore. Like
we're reaching the threshold of graphics and stuff. The
yeah.
only thing we're getting bad is physics, like world building, less loading screens, all that stuff is getting better. But like the graphics, I think we're as good as we're gonna get. We can create so many different things in graphics wise, like cartoony. Look at this game. It's gorgeous. It's cartoony, but it's gorgeous. I mean, we can make the realistic games. We can make pixelated games, like many indie devs love that because it's easier to manage instead of things like this, the 2D style. But yeah, I mean, we're at the threshold for it.
We really are. I think we've never been in a better place for development in terms of the variety of stuff that we can get. Like we just haven't. And the fact that now we're at the point also in terms of the variety that the small developers, like you said, the small developers can give you a game that has AAA polish on it. With a budget that is not comparable to a AAA game. So we've never been in a better place when it comes to development. And I think with that said, the industry needs to move into a place where it's sort of open to having games on as many platforms as possible, making sure that as many people as possible can play these games. So I think this is during the course of this generation, we're going to see some more shifts in how we sort of consume games and obviously how we play them. If Xbox is, if xCloud really becomes a thing and cloud gaming in general becomes a viable alternative, things are going to look kind of different in the next 7 or 8 years.
Yeah, that's true. And when you look at it, so one person in the chat is saying it's going to be to 8K soon. That's Assassin Lupa.
Yeah.
I mean, 4K is beautiful enough. Why go to 8K? It's not gonna look It's
Yeah, it's 8K is one of those things like, but see, but we said the same thing about 4K, right? I agree that as especially with these consoles now that are doing different things with sort of machine learning and super sampling, you don't need to run a game at a native resolution for it to look good because with AI enhancements and stuff like that, you can run a game at a low resolution and it still seem like it's a native 4K or whatever the case it is. So I think my hope is, I don't say I think, my hope is that more and more resolution becomes less important and they just continue to improve on things like, improve ray tracing, particle effects, AIs, in terms of like the how big these worlds are and how truly interactive these worlds are. I think that to me is more exciting than just upping resolution once again. And I hope that the game industry understands that and we don't see a big push for, because a lot of times they'll push for the next highest resolution. And then in hand with that, you'll get the push for the new TVs, right? That support it.
yeah.
So I don't want to see that. Honestly, 8K, we'll get to it eventually. I have no doubt that we'll get to it eventually. I just hope it's not the focus of a move forward.
For me personally, I think 4K is gonna be mainstream, and I think we're gonna live by that because 4K is already demanding enough for consoles and PC and TV. Like it's not even common for TV shows to be in 4K yet. And with all the other bells and whistles like Dolby Vision and all the stuff. Like when I go to Netflix and I look at all the Netflix shows, I think not even half of them are in 4K. There's a lot of shows that are just not supporting it yet. Or they're too old. I mean, one of the two. And then I want to take it to the chat because there's a few questions and I think there's three very nice ones. So first of all, what's your favorite Halo game?
My favorite Halo game, I think it's the original. For me, Combat Evolved and
Okay.
everything that's associated with that game, in terms of being excited for this brand new platform that we've never seen before. The power and stuff that they were touting, and when I got that console in my house the first day, I bought 3 games that first day. I bought Project Gotham Racing, Dead or Alive 3, and Halo. And I had my day planned out where I was going to play them in order of, least excitement to most excitement. So the order for me was Project Gotham Racing, then Dead or Alive, and then Halo. So I got my console. I was back home by 10 a.m. I sat down to play. And I loved Project Gotham. I loved Dead or Alive. I was blown away by the graphics in both of those. And I got to Halo probably maybe 5, 6 p.m. in the afternoon. The moment I played Halo, I was maybe 15 minutes, 20 minutes into Halo, I called Cognito. I said, "Have you played Halo yet?" And he's like, "No, I haven't gotten to it yet." I said, "Stop everything you're doing. You need to go play Halo. You need to go play Halo." It was just a moment for me. And when it comes to what that game meant to console first-person shooters and sort of AI routines, in a lot of ways, there are games nowadays that don't do what Halo does in terms of how the enemies sort of flank you and try to get away from you, and they try to throw grenades at you and stuff like that. That game did so much that it wowed me. It really did wow me. And even as good as the other games after that have been, obviously, online multiplayer with Halo 2, the refinement of that in Halo 3, for me, it was the original Combat Evolved, definitely.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, for me, I can't even think of one that's the best because I only play the single player of most of them, and then I have the Master Chief collection that I use for the multiplayer now with the community game nights. So I don't really have a favorite one, but if I'll have to choose one, it's the one where you play with the both, like the enemy and I think that's Halo 2. Like the first one where you have the double pistol stuff. Where you can Yeah, that's the one I enjoyed the most because it's just like having two hands to shoot stuff is better than just one hand, you know. So that's for me is the most enjoyable one. Do you have something to add to that?
Yeah, absolutely, mate. I've never played a single player. I've never finished single player Halo, any of them. But I
Yeah.
remember when Halo 3 come out, I spent a hell of a lot of time in multiplayer. So that
Mhm.
has to be my go-to, just because of the memories of the friends I had at the time. And
Hmm.
was it Halo 3 that introduced the skulls?
The
And
skulls.
yeah,
I
or was
you
that
know
Halo
what?
4?
I don't remember.
I
No.
think
The
it's
Halo 3
3.
definitely had skulls. I don't know if it was introduced there. I could have sworn, but maybe I'm misremembering. I don't know if they. I could have sworn they were in earlier games, but
Yeah, so
maybe I'm misremembering that.
we played a few co-op things on it with the skulls and stuff, and it was me and a few buddies. We just had a blast. So I would always go with Halo 3 every time.
Yeah, Halo 3 was great. And in terms of like people were sort of disappointed with aspects of 2, just not the multiplayer stuff, but the way the story ended and whatnot. And Halo 3, just everything, like the story, the multiplayer, the fact that it was the first Halo on the 360, so it was next gen,
Yeah.
and man, everything around that game was that was one of the biggest hype things in terms of uh in terms of like just the launch and everything like that. In terms of pop culture,
Yeah.
Halo 3 was huge, man.
For me, that was my launch of being online with people.
Hmm.
I'd never experienced it before until sort of I got the 360 when it launched, and by that time I had my own house. I had the internet. I plugged it in, and yeah, we just went nuts.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
to me, that Halo 3 is multiplayer. That's where my multiplayer sort of experience started.
amazing.
So let's go to another question because I have another question that's also expect something great for an answer. What do you think about whether the devs and studios like Game Pass or not, and does it help them? Also from Assassin Lupa.
Mm, I think for smaller, I think in general, we'll never know the answer in terms of money and how much money they make, because if they make money from it, which I do believe they do,
Mm-hmm.
because obviously Microsoft has to give them money up front in order for them to put the game in Game Pass and for it to be worth it for them. So for smaller games that might not get the exposure that a bigger game gets, obviously 100%, because you get a guaranteed amount of money up front, and after that, your game does go on sale after whatever the period is that it's on Game Pass. It does go on sale normally, and by that time, the hope is that enough eyes have been on it that if somebody didn't purchase it while it was in Game Pass but liked it enough, they'll go and purchase it again. And even those people that didn't engage with the game on Game Pass may want to purchase it on another platform. So I think in that regard, it does a lot to sort of bring games that you might not know about to the forefront. In terms of the bigger games, obviously Microsoft has it where it works for them on the first party front. Um, and they've stated that it hasn't, it's not a super big moneymaker for them right now, right? It's getting there. But that's a matter of increasing the number of subscriptions, right? The more subscriptions you have, obviously, the better value it is for the consumer, and the more money they're going to make on it. So as subscriptions grow, I know that the money proposition on the business side for Microsoft is going to be great, and I think in turn that means that you know, developers are getting a nice chunk of change from that too, because again, when it comes to third party stuff and whatnot, those games don't stay in there forever. At some point, they do hit the open market and are sold normally. So I think Game Pass is great, and I think obviously the benefits for the consumer are easy to see. But I think if it were not benefiting the developers, we'd have heard about it. Like big time, we would have heard about it.
Okay. Um, any medieval?
What was the question again? Sorry.
About whether or not devs like Game Pass and if it's good for them.
Yeah. Going on what Sovereign said, I think for the smaller ones, they don't have to worry about cost. They don't have to worry about time because Microsoft. It's been said numerous times by smaller developers that the money's there, so they can take the time and release a really, really good product.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if they're on their own releasing stuff, that they're going to have to sort of, we've got to get this product out, or we're not going to make any money. So in that aspect, I think it's brilliant. It's really good, and obviously Microsoft's first party can, it's fine. It'll just release. There you go, because they're throwing that money at them anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Third party, I'm still a little bit on the fence with third party because I think third party should go everywhere anyway. So third party should launch on every single platform so everybody could play it. And it's a horrible move to say I'll pay you this money just so you're on Game Pass. If a game's not selling and it hasn't got the audience or they can't afford the marketing rights, and Game Pass say, look, you're not selling, get it in Game Pass, we'll market it for you. Then I'm all up for that. But to snag something into Game Pass from a third party on release, I think is a bad move.
Okay. Yeah. For when I think about it, I think it's the same thing. Like the small devs, they get at least an audience. I mean, otherwise you don't know how it's going to be for them. Like they could be afraid to see not the attention that they needed. Now it's big on Xbox. You see, like, these games are coming out, and you see all these interesting games that you probably would not buy, and now you will play them instead because you can test them out for free. I mean, because you're paying for one subscription, you're getting all these games, and you're like looking, I can test these games out for sure. There's been a couple of titles that I really like. There's this one title that's an indie game where you actually have to go around like in a rhythm-based style, shooting zombies with a car, on a lot of like metal tracks, which is very cool. But it gets really claustrophobic with all zombies coming after the car. So, but it's so cool to see that kind of games like coming to Game Pass. Just the games that you would not otherwise touch or even look to.
Yeah, and that's important because you can't let the indie space. I think when you think back to the days of Xbox Live Arcade, I love that because it was this separate thing for those games. And when you had Summer of Arcade, that's how they brought those games to the forefront. And a lot of those games I remember as being some of the best of the generation. When you talk about Braid and Limbo and Castle Crashers and Shadow Complex and stuff like that, like those games wouldn't have gotten sort of the recognition that they did had they not been sort of put on this platform and kind of been put on a pedestal. So I think Game Pass is great for that. And back to Animated Evil's point, when it comes to the third party stuff, especially big third party stuff, I sort of agree. I think it's a tough proposition anyway, right? Because the big third party game that's probably out on multiple platforms, for them to accept to be on Game Pass, the money they would need to get upfront guaranteed would be a pretty penny, I would have to assume, right? And so it doesn't make a lot of sense. So I think in that serves as a good deterrent for for keeping those games day and date on every platform, so everybody has access to them day one. But Microsoft does have the money to do it if they did want to do it.
I'm not saying that alone. Like, when you look at the multiplayer-based games, those games are ideal for Game Pass.
Oh, that's for sure.
Just PSO alone. PSO, I don't know the full name anymore. It's like a blank in my head at the moment. But PSO at this moment has so much people using it. On a daily basis or weekly basis. Oh, hold on.
Yeah. PSO, like, you look at what they did with Destiny, the fact that Destiny, everybody has access to Destiny now. That's huge. That's huge.
Yeah,
I would not be surprised, and I think we said this on our show at some point. If we see Avengers in Game Pass at some point,
that
and
will happen. That will happen. The game is flopping as
mhm.
nobody's business. I do love that game a lot, but just the problems it has at the
Yeah.
moment. I'm waiting for that patch. The patch is gonna fix so much. The loading times are reduced at the moment, but I want my Series X patch. I'm just begging for it to release soon.
Yeah.
I hope, because new character is coming out really soon, Kate
Mhm.
Bishop, and
Yeah.
I am excited, but I'm not gonna touch the game until the game is patched. Like, just saying. I
Yeah.
don't care how long it takes. I need that game to be patched.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my thing with that game, and this goes for Anthem as well. I
Yeah.
just think it's tough to sort of beat Destiny at their own game. Even the Division, which is by all accounts a quality game as well, has had difficulty sort of maintaining that constant influx of content and stuff. The way Destiny has sort of, after like 6 or 7 years, finally sort of gotten it. And even then, it's still kind of a roller coaster ride up and down. But I just think it's tough. I think both Avengers and Anthem, if they hadn't gone to sort of games as a service route and made a great, a multiplayer Avengers game where you could swap in and out of the Avengers, but it's essentially a single player sort of narrative game. And same for Anthem. If they had created a game and a world around Anthem and made a great, single player or co-op game or whatever, it wasn't necessarily tied to service-based stuff like loot and stuff like that, I think we'd be talking differently about these games. And I think that they would have been super successful. I just don't know if, obviously with Avengers, you can create a serious amount of stories around them and content around them.
Yes, so much. There's so many characters they can take a benefit from. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
normally I know that because of Chad Boswick,
Both, yeah.
yeah, that they normally were going to release Black Panther first,
Mm-hmm.
probably with New Zone, but that got scaled back because of what happened to him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't want to talk too much about it because it's a really sensitive topic, I feel, to a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people, especially because of what he brought to the community as a character.
For sure.
But man, that game, they could do so much more. I feel that they took something that's really great concept, but they took it in a little bit of the wrong direction. I mean, you see it in the gear scoring system, like how they use the gear in the game. Like, you cannot have skins in the game
Mm-hmm.
and then not have the gear change your appearance. I mean, that's weird, especially in a game that is gear based. That has a lot to do with gear. They took a lot of wrong turns, I would say, with that game as well. But it's still enjoyable. Like, the gear grind is fun. There's a lot of fun abilities in the game. The synergy with the different people in your party, I think it's really fun, and it's fun to play single player because the guys, if you cannot find a group or if you like playing alone, it's still enjoyable to play on your own. This game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I heard the story was pretty good, so I definitely do want to at some point delve into the story.
Yeah. Also, the AI is not bad in that game. The AI from your companions
Mm-hmm.
is. I played everything single player.
Yeah. Oh,
Um, yeah, I played the whole game single player. No one person touched my story campaign, man. It
a
was
man
enjoyable
after my
till the end.
heart. A man after my own heart.
Yeah.
They constantly get on my back because I don't play a lot of multiplayer stuff or any. Should I rather say any?
Well, I did try to play Unravel 2 from EA multiplayer because there's a co-op mode, but it's only couch co-op. Because me and Assassin Lupa were trying to play the game. We're like, oh yeah, we can play the game. It's a nice puzzle game, you know. I love the first one. I want to try the second one, and because I know there's two characters, there's probably a way to play multiplayer, right? No, only couch co-op. So we were both in the party, like looking for the option where to play together, and it didn't like we couldn't find it. That was a little bit of a shame. And then, we got a third question here to move it a little bit along. The third question here is, so Cyberpunk is coming out in a few days, right? 3 days away, people. 3 days. So we know the VGAs on the 10th, which is when Cyberpunk comes out. Are you going to play Cyberpunk or are you going to watch the VGAs?
Well, unfortunately, I'll be at work, so I'll be able to do neither. I won't be playing Cyberpunk until the weekend. And even then, it's such a big game. I'm already playing Valhalla. I don't know how deep I'm going to get into it now, especially if the performance isn't where I want it to be at launch. I may just wait for the next gen patch if the performance isn't to my liking. But there's just a lot. There's just so much. Like was it animated evil? You said you started Dragon Quest, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, so I looked at Dragon Quest. I'm like, nah, there's not a chance in hell that I'm starting an RPG. There's no way. It's so many RPGs, and so I'm definitely gonna probably play at least the first 10 hours and see sort of where that leaves me. I'm definitely excited for it, but I've just gotten over the fact that I'm not gonna play day one. So.
And have you seen a lot of gameplay? Do you know a little bit about what choices you can make and stuff, and how that works? And
oh yeah, absolutely. I remember 2 years ago at E3, we Cognito got a chance to go and see the demo in person, and then he came back, and I actually interviewed him about what he saw there and whatnot. And in terms of like the choices and stuff, that to me was the biggest thing when it comes to sort of the concept of cyberpunk and how you're sort of hacking into your world, and there's sort of this interconnectivity between organic things and mechanical things and electronic things. It is to me, that is the core of what cyberpunk is. So my main interest is to see how that sort of idea is integrated into the whole game. Like, can you really hack into everything? Can you really modify everything? How deep does that go? That's what really interests me about that. In terms of everything else, I've heard people, with early impressions talking about how the driving isn't great. It's an RPG. From what I heard, the driving gets better if your driving skill improves per se. Like an RPG, you improve that skill and you get better at it. Same with the shooting. But as someone who's very fond of the Deus Ex games, I'm super excited to see how. Yeah, I love Deus Ex, and I remember playing the first Deus Ex and losing my mind at the amount of options that you had just to tackle any given random situation. Just how do I get rid of this guard that's standing here? It could be like the most innocuous thing. There were 15 different ways you can get rid of this guy. And it's like this blew my mind because that game came out, the PC version. I don't even remember how long ago that was, but it just absolutely blew my mind. So to see this type of game in that same vein, try to sort of elevate that formula, I'm definitely excited to see that. And then CDPR to me is a developer that, with every single game, has shown such improvement in terms of leaps and bounds of what they do. The jump from the first Witcher to Witcher 2 and 2 to 3 are kind of humongous leaps. So to see where they go with Cyberpunk, I'm super excited to see it. I really am.
Okay. So what Deus Ex game were you talking about? Is it the Human Revolution or
the original Deus Ex?
That came back 20 years ago.
Yeah, that's an old game.
Yeah, I never played that one as well.
What did you think of the sort of the rehashes that come out on not the current gen, but sort of last gen?
I enjoyed them as well. I think they sort of they made it more actiony, right? Yeah. But at the same time, all those other hacking options and whatnot were still there. I think overall they were more polished games. So what happens is like it didn't feel like the first Deus Ex really felt like sandboxy in a way where you could sort of really tackle things. If any of you guys have played like Baldur's Gate, right? Where that's an RPG where you can do the randomest stuff, much like you can in D&D, like sort of create ways to tackle a scenario on the fly. And it's back then to think of a game that can give you that sort of freedom is kind of crazy. So to see Deus Ex, the original Deus Ex, do that sort of stuff where it's like, well, let me try this that doesn't make any sense. And then it works, and you're like, oh my God, wait a minute. Wait, what else can I do? So the later games sort of tightened the focus in a way that didn't give you as much freedom, but the idea of being able to tackle situations differently was still there. But they sort of made it more of an action game with those elements as opposed to the original Deus Ex that kind of felt more RPG-ish as opposed to those other ones. But I enjoyed them as well. I really did.
Okay.
Brilliant.
Yeah, really, really cool. Yeah, not really sure. Yeah, that's actually a good question. I'm reading the chat here as well, like about Cyberpunk. What path are you gonna go? Because that's something I really I'm looking forward to. It's like the 3 different paths that have like the different things you can do in the game and stuff. So, what's your take on that? Like, what do you like?
What were the different paths? I think I was gonna go the path of the nomad. The nomad is sort of, the rebel without a cause, sort of
Yeah, you
Mad
came from outside of the city and you came into the city as new blood, I would say.
Yeah.
That's one of the paths. Excuse me.
Yeah, I was thinking Street Kid, to be fair.
Yeah, I'm going corpo. I want to have that corporate life, espionage in the beginning of the game, like hack into the main base and get caught. That's how I'm gonna start my game. But
all of them seem like really, really interesting starting points.
I'll probably try them all to begin and see what I like the most. Like I can say I'm not going corpo, but probably like in the beginning you'll. I'm just gonna try them all. Like I'm gonna play 3 different times through the campaign, the tutorial area. I would say because they're all different, so it makes it interesting.
It's funny. I heard the tutorial area is like 10 hours long.
No.
Yeah.
You know how when a game starts out, you see the splash screen and it says the title of the game. So apparently, this game sort of starts you out sort of in the middle of the action, and it isn't until like 10 hours in that you finally get the splash screen that says Cyberpunk 2077. So that's what I heard. It might be wrong, but it's one of those things like you're going to be playing the game for a long time before the game actually sort of starts properly.
Yeah, I think it's the same in many different games that they actually do that nowadays. Yeah. It's weird. Like you're playing the game for so long and then you're like, hey, this is the beginning of the game. I'm like, what?
Yeah, I can definitely do that.
CDPR did it in Witcher 2, did they not? They threw you into an arena with all your skills, and then everything was removed after that. It's like, what? Was it Witcher 2 that did that? And I'm sure it was.
Was it? Wait, Assassins? I don't remember how Assassins of King started.
No, you started in an arena.
I don't think The Witcher. I think it was.
It was Witcher 2. Oh. You started in an arena with all your bombs and all sorts of stuff, and you had to fight a few guys off. And then,
yes,
and then you got when after that was finished, everything was removed. You say, "Well, I've got to learn it all." What?
Mm-hmm. Yes, yeah. I do. I remember that. I do remember that because that was when it was so vastly different from Witcher 1.
Yeah.
That I was like, wait a minute, what the heck? Wait. It was Witcher 2 was great, but that's one game I was definitely happy they sort of they in terms of the action parts of it, they dumbed it down and made it more like a third-person action game, and then while leaving the RPG elements in it. Because it was a little weird to control, and at least initially, Witcher 2.
Yeah. But they're no strangers from taking it all away from you once you've earned it after I think that was about an hour and a half. I think
Oh, there's so many games that
they're
do
no
that.
strangers.
It's like you have a taste of what you're gonna be at the end of the game in the
Yeah.
beginning of the game, and I think it's a cool idea to maybe do it in the demo.
Yeah.
But if you do it in the main game, you're like, oh, I have all these abilities, I need to learn them, and then they all taken away again. They're like, what? I just learned how to use them.
Well, I don't even know if that's the case, but I do. From what I did hear, it is that the game sort of starts. It hits the ground running completely. And not to say that you have your skills, but in terms of like it throws you right into the story immediately,
Oh
and
yeah,
you don't slow down to sort of hey, this is Cyberpunk, until 10 hours in.
I think that's fine. I think they should do that more, actually.
Yeah.
Like throw you in the story, figure out everything as you go. Um, like there's so many games that do that, but I do think it's a better concept than just starting out fresh and then learn everything slowly and I mean we're past that point. We know how games work, boys. Just don't do it every
Yeah.
time.
I'm
We can
I'm always
hold our
for when
own.
games. Yeah, man. I'm always for when games do things differently. If there's one thing that I knock games for a lot still is sort of kind of old tropey ways of telling stories. Like, even like I seriously enjoyed Miles Morales, but there were things about how that story was told and certain characterizations I was like, I wasn't too happy with. And it's just sometimes it just comes down to these tropes that they use in gaming all the time. Like, the hero goes through this personal thing, and that makes them see what they really have to do. It's tropey stuff like that I think The Witcher 3 started to do differently, and that's kind of what makes me super excited about this, because it's this type of storytelling that I like to see, where it's not conventional at all, and it tells like a very adult story. So I'm excited to see how Cyberpunk evolves that from Witcher, because I thought Witcher did a very good job with that.
Yeah, I'm really hoping like from what we've heard so far from many different people that they play for 10 hours and so on, and that
Yeah.
it's all really great. We'll see how it begins. We'll see. Like I'm always having that little bit of afraid that it's gonna be different than what they say, than what
Yeah.
the others experienced. Also, nobody played on the Series X, so we don't know how that works.
Well, there's been some. I don't know how true this is, but I'm hearing that it runs at 60. But we shall see, because I don't know.
Woo!
I don't know. I don't know if
I
a day
don't
one
trust
patch has
that
already been
story.
installed.
I don't trust that. Come
I
on.
no, I don't trust that at all, because they could be, if they don't have the day one patch yet, that could very well be all well and good, and they can lock up that frame rate for day one, and it's running at 30. That is absolutely 100% possible. So yeah, until I have it in front of me, I don't trust that at all.
Yeah, let's just hope we got two different options, like
Yeah.
most games, that we can choose either frame rate or graphics. And I do want to say, for everyone on the One X, don't be afraid, guys. The game looks so beautiful on the One X as well. Like we all seen the gameplay segment where they show both consoles on both, like both consoles with both, like the PlayStation 4, PlayStation 4 Pro, and PlayStation 5. And then same with Series X, Series like the One X, the Xbox One and stuff. Like yeah, it looks gorgeous on all consoles. I have to say they did a great job with optimizing it. So like it runs smoothly in the gameplay section. So I hope it's over the whole game. That there's not too much bugs and glitches like the other games have now, because it's still pretty new, the new console. So I'm a little bit iffy. I hope everything runs well from the beginning. Let's hope. Let's just pray to the gods.
Yeah, exactly.
So, is there anything you want to talk about as last subject from yourself, Solver?
No, I mean honestly, I just like I said, I like this format that you have, just sitting here like talking about just stuff, that comes up, and not necessarily having like this like strict script that you stick to, and just sort of talking about
Yeah.
what you're playing in the moment. I love that because that's what it is. Like, when I think back about the conversations my friends and I had when we were all sitting in the same room gaming or whatever, it is sort of just talking about what we're playing in the moment, or just the conversations around that are just very organic. And I think that, to me, to have a successful podcast, it's about that. It's just about being organic and talk and just talking, rather than oh, let's get to this subject and let's get to this subject and that subject. And there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. It's just that, or you know when it happens organically, you feel it, right? You feel it, and it's just like, oh, I'm just talking to the guys or whatever. I'm talking to the group.
Hmm.
um and I think it's fantastic. So again, this is something that even on our own podcast, we don't really get to do like that. So I really appreciate it. I definitely do.
Well, I do want to thank you for that. I mean, it's something that I really want to keep doing, because it's one, and I want to thank Klaus for this especially because during his interviews that he does, we write nothing down. We just ask questions when we feel like it. On the interviews that we're doing for Guys with Quarters, with like the EA interview we did a little bit earlier.
Hmm.
I wasn't there because I had too much pain, so I could not, like, I had to call off last minute, which I
Hmm.
thought was a shame. But yeah, what do we have to do? It's not fixed. It's just a little bit better. I'm sitting in my couch instead of upstairs.
Hmm.
But yeah, thanks to him, I'm just learning to get more like um, how do you say it? I'm just more not thinking about stuff, just going with the flow. Because in the begin, like a couple of episodes back, I'm a little bit more not so freeform, I would say. Then I'm still like thinking about what I'm going to say, and now I'm just like popping something in because I think about it. So I think it's
Yeah.
getting better overall. Um, yeah, I do want to thank you for coming very much.
No,
Um,
thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Klaus, you back?
Yeah, I just got back. I'm so sorry, guys.
Yeah, we're just about the end of the show.
We got stuck in traffic.
uh,
So
it's okay, man. Like I say, real life always comes first, man. It's the most important thing in life. This gaming hobby and podcasting stuff and all is always second, especially for me as well now in the time like this.
Yeah.
I think it's very important to always put your life first, and then your hobbies and your other stuff you do. So yeah, always keep that on point. So no, man. I want to thank you for coming. Sovereign was a really nice thing you did there. So tell them where you can find where they can find you, man.
No, definitely, man. Like I said, again, thank you so much, and thank you so much for what you're doing. Like I said, I love this sort of conversation. I just love just hanging out, talking games, and without having any sort of structure. That's fantastic because the conversations go into a lot of different directions. That's for sure.
Yes.
Um,
I got that same argument from Addict, like he was not prepared at all. And he said like I'm the most random of the lords, so of the Iron Lords. So yeah, I hope the rest is okay with it.
Oh no, man! This is fantastic. This is absolutely fantastic. But you guys can find me every Sunday at 1 p.m. Well, 11 a.m. for I think one more week, and then we're back to 1 p.m. Eastern time on YouTube,
Yeah.
Iron Lords podcast. You can catch me, Lord Cognito, Lord King David, and Lord Addict. Doing what we do every Sunday on YouTube.
Okay, yeah, and then also they can follow you on Twitter, and I put everything in the description below,
Oh,
guys,
fantastic! Yeah.
so
Uh,
you can find it over there as
Yeah,
well.
you can find me on Twitter, Lord Sub ILP. I am the retweeting master. You won't necessarily see me tweeting a lot of stuff, but I'll retweet a lot of stuff. That's for sure.
Yeah, something that I do nowadays as well. A lot of retweeting.
Uh,
Um, I do think it's fun to always communicate with the community and stuff in Twitter and talk with them. So yeah. Also, clowns. We haven't really heard you that much today, but yeah, tell them where they can find you, man.
Yeah, in the beginning of this in the middle of this podcast, probably the most for today is where they can find me. But other than that, Four Guys with Quarters, on Tuesdays, and Flamish drops by, and then when Flamish is ready to do 4GQ TV news, we do have some more interviews coming up as well that I have to schedule and see when everybody's available. And then Italian Clowns on all social media. And then also in Flamish's Xbox party chats at random, and on his bus drives. I try to keep him awake sometimes so he doesn't run people over.
Yeah, let me tell about this real quick, guys. When I'm driving my bus, I always like to be in Xbox parties talking about all kinds of stuff. So if you're ever on Xbox and you see me in a party, just jump in, man. Talk with me. Talk about gaming. I'm just driving my bus. You hear some noises in the background about people stepping off the bus, hearing the bell, and having the engine noise. But overall, it's fun. Like talking about all kinds of gaming and stuff, and then just driving with the bus. It's weird. It's weird. I can tell you that, but it's so much fun. I my time goes so much faster. Makes my time go faster while working, so it's always fun. But yeah, class continue.
Yeah, I mean, and that's pretty much it. Always with the Belgium sensation across nation. Oh, and on game nights, community game nights, and Lord Sovereign, you and the rest of the realm and friends of the realm are always welcome into Tushy's game nights. It's actually a lot of fun. The parties get pretty big, and it's just crazy stuff from Halo to Wreckfest to Forza. And he tries to play stuff in Game Pass so everybody can join in as well. And the only game that I recommend that you tell him that we don't play by the Belgium rules is golf with your friends, because otherwise that game gets crazy.
So, yeah, that game when we play Belgium golf, we randomize the ball, so it can be a cone, it could be a cylindrical form, a cube, an acorn. The acorn is the worst of the bunch, by the way. So yeah, that game mode is so much worse. A lot of cursing going on then, trust me. And yeah, then we got my panel member, Animated Evil.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. First of all, I'd like to say thank you to our honoured guests, Lord Sovereign. Thank you very much for coming. Clowns, a pleasure as always. Also, I'd like to say a massive thank you for the chat. It's been fun. It's been nice. There's not been a bad word said. Who could ask for more? They've been a great bunch. So shout out to the chat. And a massive thank you for letting me on yet again, Flamish. I appreciate it.
Man, you're gonna be on every week.
I know, but every week I'm gonna say thank you. It's fine. Every week I'm gonna say thank you very much.
And probably, guys, I had to cancel tomorrow because normally tomorrow Lord Cognito was gonna be on the show. Like, I'm going after all the Iron Lords. I want them all on my show just one time. We'll see if they want to come on again. But yeah, man. I just want to say Lord Cognito will be the week after on Monday, probably, if I don't need to work late. So we'll see about that. And did you tell them where they can find you, Animated Evil?
No, not yet. You can find me at animated_evil on Twitter, and if you want to join in the fun, I am Animated Evil 857 on Xbox. Please feel free to add me, invite me to games, whatever.
Yeah.
And where can people find you, Flamish?
Yeah, so where they can find me is, of course, on my own channel here with the Flamish Experience. I forgot who we have on next week. I'm sorry about that. I'm like, oh my god. I always forget stuff. But no, so next week is going to be a new show, of course, on Sunday, 4 p.m. You also have 4 Guys with Quarters, where I'm sometimes on, and 4GQTV on the same channel as 4 Guys and of for um 4 Guys. I forgot the
4
name.
Guys with Quarters.
Yeah, 4 Guys with Quarters.
Flamish.
How can I forget the name? Oh my god!
I've got you, bro. I've got you.
Yeah, that's
Thanks,
why you're my
Animated.
esteemed panel member, Animated.
Yeah, I was
Thank
like,
you for it.
is Flamish having a little drink? Is that
No, I need to work tomorrow early.
He's
so,
out of candy. That's the problem.
Yeah, I need my candy. I need my candy bowl back. I need to post a picture of my beautiful candy bowl. I'm gonna get it this week, clowns. I promise. When I get on the show with you at the end of the week, I will have my beautiful candy bowl back in action. So yeah, Twitter guys, Flamish of course, and like I said, just if you see me on Xbox Party, just add me to Xbox, play with me, party on with me, guys. Just talk with me. It's always fun. So that's the end of the show. I wanna thank you all for coming, and thank the panel members, of course, and the guests. So yeah, guys, I'll see you all next week. Bye bye.